Dun, 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 dun. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Bum, 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 bum. What's up, party people in the house?
What up, though?
Welcome to Texas Live, one of the sexiest voices in the SFL,
Mr. Master.
Dave Axis. What's up, party people of the SFL? What's banging? What's cracking? What's going on? Welcome, and thank you for tuning in to season 16, episode 7 now of Axis Live. I'm your host, Dave Axis. As always, we have another amazing show, another amazing panel for you tonight to to preview the week 4 matchups. We'll have the week 3 Diva of the Week winner who will be joining us. I have confirmation as of about an hour ago. The smartest man in the SFL will be here, of course. Gunny with his pearls of wisdom. And then After Dark. This is an After Dark you are not going to want to miss. We have Johnny Pickler, everybody's favorite quarterback to love or hate, is coming on to face the hot seat and the questions from me and the panel on how their season's going so far, how his performance is going so far, etc. So make sure you stick around for that. That's going to be off the hook. Let me check the party people in the chat
While you
tonight.
check the
Let's
party
see.
people in the chat, Dave, would you say Johnny Pickler is coming from the streets to our seats?
Ooh, I think he might be. That's a good way to say that, Wink. From the streets to the seats. What's up? All right, let's see. First person in tonight was Kendra Hall. Kendra, congrats on your show with Tyler. I was watching that last night, so congrats to you. Will Todd's in the house. Charles, of course. Alan, Deep Say, Bo Martin Jr., Will Todd, Bullet Boletsky, Van Lacey. Who else we got? Hubba Breezy, Ray Ray's in his house. Nate Hall's here as well. Dwayne Boonberry, Coach is here. Good to see you. James Walters, 87 in the house. Relax Pats. I'm not sure who that is, but welcome to the show. I don't know if I've seen your name in there before. Winkler's here. That's weird. Joey Schwint is in the house, of course. Fear Dog. I wanted to say Fire Dog so bad, bro. You don't even know. AJ's here. Welcome, AJ. Tom Rahman's in the house. The lovely and amazing, the one and only Pink Lisa is here. Thank you, Pink Lisa, for tuning in. Let me see who else is here. Bob Funk, of course. Gunny, Achilles is with us. Hugo, good to see you. Eagle, Chad. Man, we got a packed house tonight. A lot of people want to hear Johnny, I guess. Benji's here. Sphinx is back. Who else? Nope. Max Jackson is here. Good to see you, bro. Urban Legend VO. I think you're one of Bo Martin Jr.'s crew, so welcome. Alien Nation, good to see you, bro, as always. Project Crusade, of course, you're here. I hope you're here. And last but not least, it looks like my old friend Dave Terry jumped in the house from Texas. Dave, good to see you. Hope you and Julie are doing well. All right, let's jump right into this. Let me introduce the panel, and then I will talk about the polls. In the unscripted circle tonight is a known entity, both on this show and in the league, the general manager of the 2-1 London Knights. Chad Rowland is with us. Chad, what's up, bro?
Man, how you doing?
I'm doing great. You know, I think I heard a rumor you guys have only started 3-1 once before, so you guys could tie that this weekend.
Yeah, that's right. Season 10, we started 3-1, so we're looking to start that again this season. So
awesome.
Well, they'll get to Baltimore.
Well, congrats to you, and I mean, good luck against Baltimore. Hey, first time you get to play against your old team.
That's right. True.
There you go. All right, good luck with that. In the unfiltered circle tonight, again, not a stranger to the show or the league, the vice president of everything that is the Fort Worth Toros, Mr. Robert Garrett Jr. is back with us. Robert, what's going on, bro? Oh, you're muted, bro. I already got one. Bam! Look at that. You're muted. Oh, you got it. Attaboy, Wink. Hey, Robert just did that so we could do the special muted bro thing, right?
Yeah,
right, Robert.
Exactly.
It was all planned. It was all planned.
Exactly.
Anyway, what's going on? How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to this show tonight. We're gonna get things popping here in a minute.
Yes,
in the unedited circle, I think the first person since we've gone to this video or this camera format to do back-to-back shows, not only did he do his first ever Access Live show on Tuesday, just 48 hours ago, but he's back again with us, ladies and gentlemen. The cornerback for the glorious Lone Star Glory, Mr. Bo Martin Jr. is in the house. Bo, how you feeling tonight, bro?
It is a glorious evening, David. I'm happy to be back, man. Happy to be back. Let's get it going.
Awesome. Thanks for being back. Appreciate you. Last and certainly not least, always in the unforgettable circle when he's here for many, many reasons that we will not go into again. But most recently for naming Kendra Hall his new co-host on Netma, Mr. Netma himself, Tyler Falk, is here with us tonight. Tyler, what's going on?
I'm doing well, Dave. Thanks for having me on again. Again, thanks to Kendra Hall for coming aboard. Always happy to have her on, and now it's official. She's my official co-host at Netma. So hi, Kendra. Hope you're doing well. And well, yeah, you mentioned it. Unforgettable for a number of reasons, and too many to count at this point.
Of course, we can't go through introductions without introducing once again the wisest man in the SFL. Gunny's with us as always. Gunny, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, sir. How about you?
I'm doing outstanding. Can't wait for your pearls of wisdom in a little bit. Thanks for being back.
Yes, sir. Always a pleasure.
All right. Before we jump into the games, let's do a little refresher on the AP poll, what we call the Axis poll, where teams, not only do they enjoy themselves and maybe get single dollar bills thrown at them, sliding up and down the Axis poll. This, what you see here, is the Axis poll this week. Again, it's about 16 people on the Axis Live show that give their feedback on this. We take the average of that. That's the Axis poll. Then we take the Axis poll and we combine it with Jack's data, current poll only, and Slyn Shady's poll to get the overall average, and that's how we do our power rankings. And if you see, you'll see here in a second, the new power rankings with all of those polls combined get you on the far left side there, as you can see. So you see ELO, you see Slyn, you see Axis, and then there's the average. And we'll be talking about, so when you see the graphics and you see the numbers next to the teams, the far left column you see on this graphic is what you'll be seeing, is what you're looking at. So, all right, all that being said, let's move on to week 4, season 16, week 4, game 1, straight out the box, potential game of the week, Chad. Louisiana Revolution, 0-3, going to the Hive, which is always a tough place to play, an even tougher place to win, an Atlanta team that's putting up a lot of points. How do you see this game breaking down?
Yeah, I think the cam is really just helping us out, trying to give us some shocking games right off the start, right? I mean, obviously Louisiana being 0-3 and Atlanta, having a good season so far. I mean, better than what Tyler, I think, predicted. But the Swarm, man, I mean, they're just playing lights out. But right now, really the focus needs to be on Louisiana. I mean, how is this team going to bounce back? I mean, it's been awful. I mean, there's no other way to describe it but awful.
Well, first of all, do you think they have a chance to go into the Hive against a high-powered Atlanta team and come out with a victory?
Not if they keep running that offense like that, no.
Do you think,
not even close.
So if you saw this schedule before the season started, would you have thought differently?
Yes. Yeah,
right.
I definitely would have thought different. I mean, because, we're expected to see how Louisiana played last season. And when you lose a couple people, I know they took a cap hit, and you lose a guy like Saren Storm, who's now with me in London, and you try to move some pieces around and this and that. And really, it's like, okay, that can't be the problem. So you have to look at it in two ways. Either coaching is the issue, or they're just not paying attention to it, or it's the play of Johnny Pickler, and that's something that, when he's on here later on, that's a question we can ask. Right now, I mean, he's dead last in QBR. He's dead last for a guy that praised about having the top QBR in the league. I mean, what the hell's going on? I mean, he's thrown 13 picks in 3 games.
I mean, he's thrown more this season, I think, already, right, than he's thrown the last 2 seasons, or each of the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, so he threw, I think it was 11 picks last year.
I think Yeah, I think he's
He
only.
was-
I don't think he's ever thrown more than 13 or something like that. Yeah, and
No,
he's
he
already.
I believe he threw 16 to St. Louis.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, he
Either
threw
way,
16 to St. Louis.
either way, through 3 games, kind of ridiculous. On the other hand, Bryant Dynasty, he had one bad game where he threw a lot of picks, but overall he's been very efficient. A lot of big names in Atlanta with that offense. Last game though, we talked about how I can't remember who Atlanta just played in week 3, but the other running back outrushed BDG. Are we getting to first game BDG played out of his mind? He was Diva of the week, and now are we seeing that trend back to where they're starting to use BDG like they did last season, where he's not as effective?
I think you're going to see a big dose of BDG this weekend. I really do. I mean, they know that he's the focal point of that offense. I mean, they have a great quarterback at Bryant Dynasty. You have all them weapons, but BDG is the main point. So to me, I think you're going to see a heavy dose of it. I don't think they'll go back to that same format. I think it's just so happened in the past 2 games, it is what it is. But I think that the reason why I think that is because I think Atlanta goes in here and just stomps their ass. I mean, I'm just going to put it like it is.
Wow. So you
I
mentioned
think
something.
when you do that, and sorry, Dave, but when you do
go
that,
ahead.
then you're going to have BDG carrying the rock a lot to keep that clock milk that clock.
Right. So I'm wondering, you mentioned, it could be Johnny, it could be coaching this season. Last season, this will be the last questions because we need to move on.
Yeah.
Twin Screw took over and did a phenomenal job. This year, you would think with the mind of Gerald and Twin Screw combined, that they would be even better. It's been, a couple people have brought up, is it because of the point deficiency for the values, right? For cap, but there's some other teams that have less cap than they do that are playing better. So when you start talking about all these things, what is it, Chad? I mean, at the end of the day, you can't say it's the cap. And
No.
Johnny's not just sitting back there probably unprotected, having all the time in the world to throwing interceptions anyway. So what's going on in Louisiana?
I mean, when I looked up the stats today, I mean, he, and I did have it wrong. He threw 11 and 14, and then season 16 he threw 15.
Winkler
16,
just
so
put that in there. I see it.
But,
Okay.
I mean, here's the thing. I mean, he's running around, trying to avoid sacks more than Patrick Mahomes did in the Super Bowl. So obviously, I believe they had offensive linemen last year, if I remember correctly. So not having those guys maybe doesn't help.
Right.
But
or maybe it's a
to
combination
me,
of everything we're talking about.
I truly think it is. I think it's a combination of everything we're talking about because, Johnny's progressing, so he's getting better in my mind. And you don't lose any talent. The only person you lose is Sarah Storm. I know they took a significant downgrade by going with B Robo wide receiver instead of Sarah Storm, which I understand what they had to do it for, but it's still a significant downgrade.
That's
But
an interesting point. That's an interesting point. I want to ask Johnny about that tonight. Is
Yeah.
you move Robo to wide receiver? I'm sorry, to receiver, and you bring in Frank the Franchise Wade at tight end. I wonder if Frank would have been better at receiver if you left Robo at tight end. I mean,
Here's
second
my thought.
guessing.
They should have left them both. They should just have them both at tight end. Just run a 2 tight end set.
Might not have had the cap for it, and then if you do that, do you try to keep Saren Storm there, and then you don't have the cap? I mean, there's a lot of questions there.
They're only missing one lineman this season. They have one.
They're missing one lineman, but you could have ran 2 tight end sets to be able to have that tight end serve as that quote unquote lineman. You know what I'm saying? Because the bill for BE was basically kind of like a blocking tight end. So now you move into wide receiver, he doesn't have that.
Oh, he doesn't have that bill.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so before I go to Jack's data, a couple comments in the chat real quick. Crazy 8's 2000, which is Dwayne, saying they have a tough early schedule. That's part of the issue, which I can see that. That's how it was for Charleston last year, so I can understand that too. And then somebody else said something here I wanted to talk about. Oh, Nate Hall is saying Twin Screw is not the problem. So, I mean, we don't know for sure, but I guess we'll maybe get some answers tonight from Johnny Pickler. Hopefully we'll get some more answers this weekend. Jack's data has Atlanta favored by 7.5, so more than a touchdown. Over under 51.5, and in the who you got, overwhelmingly 134-31, so over 100 votes more for Atlanta to attempt to win their third game this season. Crazy. All right. Moving on to game 2 on Saturday, Charleston at DC. Robert, this is kind of an interesting game. Charleston's been in some tough games already. They're looking much better this season, I think, than last season. They're up to number 7 in the power rankings. but they're playing a DC team that's taken a lot of hits this season. But DC just had a really great game in week 3. So does DC take that momentum in and give Charleston a fight, or does Charleston come in to DC and take care of business?
So I think in the end, Charleston will come into DC and take care of business. But one of the things I did want to say, and you kind of pointed it out, DC seems to have started to find their groove, figured out an offensive game plan that worked really well, at least against Mexico City, for their team. I think that is definitely something that they could build off of. The big difference here is, Charleston's defense is a fairly stingy defense in the SFL, 9th in points allowed per game at 21. So, they don't give up a whole lot. And I think that may be where we see DC's young offense struggling.
I agree with that. What about TD Drew, though?
TD Drew.
He didn't finish the last game, right? So that's
right.
But even up to that point, not great stats. Last season, I believe, and maybe Winkler can check, I think he was one of the leaders in interceptions, if I'm not mistaken. If Alan's listening, I'm sure he'll correct us in the chat if we're wrong. But can they afford to come in to DC and have TD Drew be inefficient, throw a lot of touchdowns, and still escape with a win?
I think they really need to lean on Keith Swearingen. Personally, he's been a strong point of their game when they've needed him to be in previous seasons.
Right.
And as you said, TD Drew, fairly inconsistent at times. I know he's got Buchanan, Simons, and Kim McCarrow to throw the ball to, but 7 interceptions already this season.
Yeah. I like the you're talking about keying on Swearingen. I think that's a great point. What about the running game or the passing game for DC? Do you think they have a chance to be efficient against Charleston? And where do you think, if DC is going to win this game, what are the key factors for that?
Yeah, they could certainly be efficient against Charleston. They just got to, figure out the ins and outs of that defense. I know that coming into the season, they wanted to be a run-heavy team, but I think based off of what I've seen in the couple of their games that I've called this season, they need to lean on Shabazz Synergy, veteran quarterback. He's coming out of retirement, so he lost a little bit of his skills, but he's really been able to throw the ball around and find the open receivers, especially playing up against Mexico City. A couple key turnovers for him, but overall has played pretty okay for the team.
Yeah, and let's give, I don't know the name of the backup quarterback for Charleston, but props to him. He finished out the game against Sioux Falls in Sioux Falls, and I know Sioux Falls isn't necessarily the team they've been the last couple of seasons, but it's still them, right?
Absolutely.
Well, Jack's data seems to think that Charleston will win by 7.5 points, so they're favored by more than a touchdown. An over-under of only 48.5, which is about middle ground. Again, though, another overwhelming, who you got, 131-32. So again, almost 100 votes more for Charleston than DC. So not a lot of faith in DC holding serve at home. Moving on to game 3, Denver at Arizona. While I check this chat real quick. Thank you, Alan. Alan said Warren King, Almighty Joe Young said, as well as the backup quarterback. Dwayne says, remember Charleston won with their backup last week because Swearingen was able to close it out, right? That's exactly the point. So if you can go into Sioux Falls and win with your backup quarterback, maybe you should be able to do the same thing in DC. Denver and Arizona. This, to me, is the game of the week. Arizona has had a tough opening schedule. They go to Baltimore in week 1, and they barely lose, right? They lose by, I think it was 6 points, maybe something like that. Week 2, I'm going to double check it so I don't misspeak. Week 2, Arizona goes into Charleston, the Charleston team we just talked about, and wins 33-30. However, in week 3, Bo, they lose to a London team that, yes, is much more improved. They were only 19 in the power rankings last week, which is why I think Arizona dropped so much. So are we looking at a London team that's better than we think they are? Or did Arizona just hit a speed bump and they're going to be able to defend their home field against Denver this week?
don't think it's better than London is better than we think they are, because I think London's pretty good. At the outset of the season when we were making our picks, I picked London to either be right at the cusp of the playoffs or even making the playoffs. So yeah, no, I don't think that win last week in London was a fluke. Now let's be honest. It was a shootout game. Ashley was one bad pass away from winning the game.
Yeah.
If that pick doesn't happen, that's an entirely different swing. Arizona wins the game, and we're talking about an entirely different conversation. But take nothing away. London played them great. It was a shootout of a game, and I completely agree with you, Dave. This was my pick of the week as well for game of the week.
So I think that Arizona, number one, is better than we think they are. Number two, I don't think Denver's really been challenged yet. So is this a recipe for and Arizona being able to play at home? We'll put that as number three. Is this a recipe for Arizona to get the upset and give Denver their first loss of the season?
A couple of things have to happen here, Dave. So first and foremost, if you look at what Jared McChesney did last week, Jared McChesney had 32 carries for 144 yards. He averaged over 4 yards a carry. If Arizona can't stop that, then they don't stand a chance. However, on the flip side, DJ Moses did the same thing to London last week, averaging 5.6 yards a carry. The difference is this. Arizona has been struggling to stop the pass. Okay. And so if Denver gets going, if they can get Riley Quintero going, if they can get Giacomo Jones going, I question whether or not Arizona is going to be able to stop the pass. The running backs are both going to do their thing. They're two of the best running backs in the league. Is Arizona going to be able to stop the pass? They're going to need Eddie Gage is going to have to step up, and I know he probably will hear this. He's going to have to step up, and BJ Lovelace, another one of the leaders on the team, is going to have to step up. But Eddie Gage only had 2 tackles last week. Okay, we got to get more out of the veteran Hall of Fame player that he is. We got to get more out of him. If they can stop that pass game, I think they got a shot. Arizona has a shot.
Well, let me answer some chat real quick, Bo. Everybody's getting on me about my comment saying Denver hasn't been challenged yet. And let me prove my point here in a moment. But let me say who. I think Nacho said, "Dang Axis, Baltimore isn't a challenge." Rizabit said, "Is that EJ Minson, by the way?" I'm not sure who Rizabit is. Denver hasn't been challenged yet? Question mark. We just beat the defending champions last week, right? But you doubled them up in points. You doubled the score on them. Let me look at. I wish I had the graphic up from last week. But when you look at a 31-16 win over a team that is supposed to be going for a back-to-back championship. I don't know that I would call that a challenge necessarily. I think that when you look at Denver's final scores so far, 30-0 over DC. What they do in week 1, and 33-7 over Sioux Falls. So you can make the same argument. Sioux Falls went to the championship game last year, but Denver beat them 33-7. They beat the champion 31-16. Look at the yards. They almost doubled up the yards, it looks like. 4 touchdowns to 1. I would say I'll stick to my words. I don't think Denver's been challenged yet. They took care of Sioux Falls, they took care of DC, and they took care of Baltimore all equally in my eyes. So somebody just said Denver only allowed 23 points over 3 games. That's another great point. So, and then the other thing I want to mention, is apparently there's a petition started in the chat for Tyler to get a mood hat that will change colors during the show as his mood changes. So like right now, embarrassment, does it turn red? That kind of thing. So I think that whoever started that, I think you're onto something there. Rizabeth said we didn't allow a touchdown as a starting defense until the second half last week. Yeah, you're kind of proving my point there, bro. And then Ray says everyone says I'm the mean one. Oh, Nacho, Denver's just been that good. Doesn't mean the defending champs aren't challenged. All I'm saying is if you beat a team, if you score twice as many points as another team, was that game really a challenge? That's my point. Jack's data for the Denver-Arizona game has Denver favored by 10.5. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to go out on a limb. You can clip this if you want. So get the clippers ready, whatever you got to do on Twitch. Denver will not cover this game against Arizona. I don't think Denver will outscore Arizona by more than 10.5. They've done it the first 3 weeks. I think this is the week. I think Denver still wins the game, but I don't think they win by 10.5. Over under of 52.5, which is about Actually, that's the highest this week, or second highest. So low. There's no over-unders in the 60s this week. That's kind of crazy. And then another crazy who you got, 130 to 32. So first 3 games out the box on Saturday, all leaning towards landslides, according to the Who You Got in SFL Nation. All right, moving on to LA at Florida on Saturday. That's game 4. LA 3-0, Florida rebounding after that week 1 loss to Lone Star. They've been looking good. This might rival that last game we just talked about between Denver and Arizona for game of the week. Tyler, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. Both teams are coming in off huge wins. Los Angeles going 3-0 for the first time as the Los Angeles Lycans. Florida going 2-1 with their win over, if I have my handy dandy report here, which somehow Carolina. Thank you. I somehow lost my report.
Gotta love Winkler. Winkler's always on the ball, though, bro. He's always a step ahead of us.
I appreciate that, Winkler. Thank you. So what we're looking into here is when you look at, I've got Louisiana, Atlanta up on this sheet. Okay, there we go. Sully Richardson has had a very good season, right? So I think the main key here for Florida is to contain Sully Richardson. If they can do that, they'll be okay. But then again, you got to look out for Robert Johnson as well. Second in terms of rushing yards amongst the running backs in the SFL with 384. So definitely you can't sleep on either side of the football. Have to contain them both over there in LA. Who do you pick as far as the wide receivers? And excuse me, with I'm losing my mind here. So Jack Flash at the tight end, very quick.
Yep.
Burned San Diego. So keep an eye on him. Chris Lee has been having a fantastic rookie campaign to his season. So really, as far as Los Angeles and Florida go, if you can contain the pass, which is something that Florida has been able to do for the most part, they're right there in the middle at 12th in terms of passing yards allowed against, with 252 per game on average. They should be okay. On the other side of the ball, Ron Cochran is pretty dominant this season, hasn't thrown a whole lot of picks so far, so that's a good sign there in Florida. Especially when you're going up against Los Angeles, who it might be a little bit skewed with that game they had against Las Vegas, but Los Angeles is one of the worst teams defending the pass with over 300 yards on average per game in the pass. They do have some of the best players on defense, though, does Los Angeles. Ryan Yosef had 4 picks last week, bringing his total up to 5 throughout the entire season so far. Los Angeles has a positive in the turnover differential with 4, which makes them 4th in the league. So this is really going to be a fun game to watch here, Dave.
Yeah, speaking of Ron Cochran, another former Diva of the Week winner on this show last season, he doesn't have crazy stats, right? Even last week, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 220 yards, but he might be the best veteran game manager in the SFL. He just seems to do one thing, and that's win.
Right. He's been consistent. That's the key thing this season here for Florida. He's been really consistent. He's number 1 in completions with 98 completions. He's number 5 in completion percentage with 77%. His interceptions are down, only thrown 5, which makes him 7th best in the league. He's got to work on the touchdowns. Only has 3 touchdown passes so far this season, but he's done enough. He's been consistent and he's been effective, Dave.
So talking about the running game with Florida real quick, and then I'm going to ask you a question about LA, or basically LA's running game as well. Florida, Charlie Boletsky's been doing great. He's having a good rookie season as well. Doyle, moving back to fullback after trying halfback last year, not great stats, really mostly just blocking and a couple receptions. Are they going to eventually be able to turn this into like a 2-headed monster thing, or do you think Charlie Boletsky is now the guy in Florida?
No, that remains to be seen. When they brought on Charlie Boletsky and moved Doyle over to fullback, which is a complete surprise for the entire SFL nation during the draft. Charlie is still developing. He's still a rookie, so there's a lot of things yet to be seen from this Florida rushing attack. But right now, all signs point for Charlie Boletsky being the guy going forward. But who knows? We could see a dual head rushing attack later down the road.
You think Robert Johnson will have the type of game he had last week against Florida? The last week he 31 rushes, 173 yards. Can you do something like that against this Florida defense, though?
Well, that game was a complete surprise, including to the teams that were playing. That was a complete shootout. And I don't think we're really going to see too many games like that in the SFL anymore. So you got to take them where you can get them, and especially against Florida, who are, both Florida and Los Angeles are right there in the middle of the pack with around 90 yards allowed per game as far as rushing yards against. So I'm thinking that was probably an outlier. I don't think he'll have that good of a game this week, but I'm thinking he'll have close to 100 yards this week.
Can
Okay.
I drop a little stat knowledge on you guys real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Beletsky is leading the Florida Storm in receptions by a considerable margin.
Wow, that swing pass,
Wrap your
baby.
head around that.
Yeah, and that's interesting too with some of the names they have over there.
With 30 receptions on the season.
Wow. Well, they're all swing passes, right? They got to be. Jack's data actually has LA favored by 6 on the road at Florida. I'm a little surprised by that. That's another game I'm not sure will be covered. 54.5 on the over-under. That's the highest. I'm sure last week's crazy game with LA Vegas has something to do with that. This is the tightest, by far the tightest. Who you got? SFL Nation, 87-78. So only 9 votes separating the two teams in favor of Florida. So this, again, like I said, in addition to Denver and Arizona, this could be game of the week material. Moving on to game 5, Mexico City, which is just an interesting team to me this season, Chad. Traveling to Sioux Falls, who desperately needs a win, right? So last week, Mexico City at home barely gets by DC. Are they going to be able to go into Sioux Falls and play better than they played last week? Or do you think Sioux Falls finally gets their first win of the season?
Yeah, to me, this is really, in my mind, the game of the week. I know that everybody's talking about Denver and Arizona and everything else, and with legitimate reasons, but this one is interesting because Mexico City coming off of that, it was a win, obviously, but DC played them really well. And maybe Sioux Falls sees something that DC did that may help them try to elevate to this win. But here we are again. Sioux Falls is 0-3. I said this before that, I think they struggle a little bit losing Jalen Wells and now having Charlemagne Cornelius. I think it shows a little bit. I mean, obviously this is a one-dimensional team. And we're seeing it right now. When you can stop the run game, I hate to kind of harp on it, but it's kind of going back to the Louisiana ordeal. You have a one-dimensional type of team. If you shut that run game down, then you got to have Julian Tyree or Johnny Pickler, for example, try to beat you. And then right now, those guys can't do it.
No.
I'm
Go
looking
ahead.
for
Sorry,
Mexico.
go ahead.
I'm looking for Mexico City to really continue their dominance on the defensive side of the ball too. Because Dan Tritz, my God, I mean, can we just discuss this guy? I mean, 5 sacks.
Yeah.
Dude is a machine, man. Like, I mean, I was blown away when I saw that game and saw the stats. I was just like, my God, like, where was this guy? You know what I mean? Great pick by them. Great, fantastic pick.
Well, and Julian Tyree threw 2 picks last week, and I think was it the week before was against Baltimore, where he threw
Yeah.
like 4 or 5 or something like
Yeah.
that.
He's
5.
up
Yeah,
there.
5
He's
against
up
Baltimore.
there. He's not tied for worst because that's JQ and Johnny Pickler. But I think he's got like 11 or 10
Well,
interceptions.
2 last week, 5 the week before, and I'm looking for his week 1 against Denver. I'm sure that's not going to be pretty either. And it is right here.
Tyree's got 7 right now.
He's
Got
got
7? Okay.
No,
So
he's got
better than I thought.
7. So he had actually no interceptions against Denver, which is actually great. We probably talked about how efficient he was. So Mexico City, though, you talked about their defense, but how great of a defense at home gives up 31 points to a team that we have decided is last in the power rankings?
I mean, that's a valid question, and every team has an off day. I'll give you that. But, I think right now, just in my mind, DC is playing better football than Sioux Falls.
Okay, then let's flip the script here. What does Sioux Falls need to do to hold home court and come out with a victory against Mexico City this weekend?
Well, we got to see the old defense of old. We got to see that defense actually step up. I mean, they've given up quite a few points. Now, granted, they've played some really good teams, but we got to see them stop somebody. And then on the opposite side, you got to feed the beast, man. Feed Colin Hart. Open up some open up some holes. Because let's face it, we all know Julian Tyree is not going to win that ball game. He's just not. So you have to use Colin Hart, and you got to get those lanes opened up. And if you do that and you start scoring on this defense, then yeah, Sioux Falls can get their first win.
Yeah, Colin Hart only 64 yards and 1 touchdown last week against Charleston. That's not going to get it done in the SFL.
No.
Jack's data has Mexico City favored by 7.5, Chad, so more than a touchdown. Over under 41.5, which is one of the lowest, second lowest for the week. Kind of a close who you got, not as close as LA, Florida, but 91-74 in favor of Mexico City. So again, not a lot of faith in Sioux Falls team who's coming off back-to-back championship games. Starting off 0-3, they think they're going to go 0-4. The nightcap on Saturday night, Queen City at Tulsa. Another very interesting game for me, Robert Garrett Jr. You've got a Queen City team that likes to grind it out. They lost, I think it was by 10 points to Atlanta last week, if I'm not mistaken, 27-17. But Tulsa kind of feels like they're due. Is this Tulsa's time at home to steal a victory from Queen City?
It's possible for sure. Queen City's weak spot on the defense has been their passing game. They've allowed 233 yards a game in the air. So far Tulsa has kind of shown that they wanted to throw rookie JQ pretty much right in the fire, get him going. It seemed like so far the way that Tulsa has game planned and built their offense that they wanted offensive rookie of the year or bust for JQ. And
it's looking bust so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
And against a Queen City defense this weekend, is it possible?
It is possible. I think one of the big things for Queen City is they got to get that defensive line going. Jeff Dovey, Tina Begin, and Digger Graves, the highest sack total is 2.5. Duffy and Begin both tied there. And David Tilley with 2 as well. They just haven't gotten that defensive line in the backfield like they have in previous seasons. And, I think it's hurt them in the long run.
Queen City, they're a grinded out team. They're scoring, I think 17 is the highest amount of points they scored all season so far. Jet Zero, though, coming into his own, had a great game. I think he was in the top 10 plays, if I'm not mistaken, this week. Is Jet Zero the key to victory for Queen City going into Tulsa?
I think so. I think if they can grind down that clock and keep things moving, and then their defense can force a couple turnovers, it's going to be trouble for Tulsa. And, Tulsa so far has kind of fallen into that where every time they get momentum, an interception or some kind of bad play forces them back.
If this game was in Queen City, Robert, I think it's a no-brainer. Queen City wins this game. Does home field advantage help Tulsa at all in this case?
Possibly. I think the biggest thing that would help Tulsa is Sanzo Robinson. Far this season, 49 carries for 135 yards. They just about need to put out like missing posters around the city.
I think you're right on that. And I think somebody else just talked about that, I think, on Tuesday as well. Well, here's where Jack's data stands. They've got Queen City only favored by 3.5. So as far as I'm concerned, 3.5 is not a lot of confidence in that spread. I think that, gives Tulsa a chance. Over under 44.5, a little bit less than middle of the road. Again, another overwhelming 137-26. So I think that's 4 out of the 6 who you got from SFL Nation, 100 vote difference for Saturday. I hope we see closer, better games for Sunday. Before we get into Sunday's games, let's see if Gunny's around. Gunny, you here with us still?
Yes, sir.
You ready with your pearls of wisdom for us?
Let me see. Yes.
Let me see.
I had my paper upside down, so yes.
That's okay. I was just kind of stalling because I didn't see Ray or anybody put the lyrics to the Marines hymn in the chat yet. But apparently Ray's falling down on the job. I know she's in the chat because I saw her earlier. And look at that. As I continue to talk, she comes through and puts them in. Gunny, you're good to go.
All right. Good evening, SFL, and good luck to everyone this weekend in week number 4. I do not have any 12 days of Christmas, but I have 8 questions for the commissioner and deputy commissioner of the SFL. These came to my head today on the way driving back and forth to work. Question number 1. If you were not the commissioner or deputy commissioner for one season, what team, position, or jersey number would you choose? Ooh. Question number 2. If you could become an owner of any current team, which would it be for one season? If you had to bid for an expansion team, where would you be located and your team nickname? Question 4. If you could be commissioner of any sport, pro or college, A, which sport would you choose? B, what is one rule you would like to add, delete, or change? Question number 5. Favorite video game as a kid and favorite video game as an adult? Question 6. People in the SFL community you look most forward to meeting for the very first time at the 2021 convention. Question number 7. If you had spare time to be a part of any other sim league, what would it be? And question 8. At the start of season 16, honestly, who did you have picked as your final 2 for the SFL championship? Also, it is Valentine's Day this weekend, so I am looking forward to these 2 players being my divas of the week 4. That would be Billy Ray Valentine, defensive end of the Atlanta Swarm, and Portland's halfback, Ezekiel Love. These guys are going to have an outstanding weekend. And with that, that is all. And good luck again in week 4 to everyone.
That was awesome, Gunny. I love how Cam was trying to keep up with you in the chat. You got so far, you got kicker, number 3, basketball, 4-point shot, and I'm going to have to think about the rest. And, dude, Valentine and Love. I'll tell you, I hope they have breakout games. I'll tell you what, if either of them have a diva moment, I will automatically nominate them for Diva of the Week. How about that? Gunny, thank you so much. Appreciate you. All right, let's move into Sunday's games. This is one of the more intriguing games. Lone Star plummeting in the power rankings. They were number 5, I believe, last week. I think they had the biggest drop. Them or Arizona had the biggest drop. Here's my question, though, Tyler. And we have to skip Bo for now because he can't do his own game. Tyler, Lone Star lit up Florida in week 1. Florida comes back, beats Jacksonville in week 2. Jacksonville beat San Diego, doubled them up on points last week, and they played Houston, San Diego, both teams that are lower in the power rankings. Is Jacksonville as good as we think they are, and are they worthy of this number 4 power ranking? Or is Lone Star better than we are, and we've hit a couple of hiccups? Because you know that old adage, well, if we beat Florida and Florida beat Jacksonville, well, then I guess we must be better than Jacksonville, right? Or is this going to be one of those triangles where we beat Florida, Florida beat Jacksonville, and Jacksonville beats us?
No, I think it's going to be a tough game. Both teams last week, in my opinion, they both failed to get going. Lone Star left it all into the last quarter to, pile on 14 points, but it wasn't enough, even with the dramatic 2-minute drill there at the end.
Right.
But Jacksonville, they weren't able to put San Diego away until the second half. They were right there with San Diego was right there with them with Jacksonville, going 10 apiece going into the half. So, Jacksonville's a good team. Lone Star's a good team, but both, like I said, failed to get going last week, Dave.
And real quick, you're welcome, Slim Shady, for the notification waking you up. You know what? You should have your alarm set. I shouldn't have to ping you. What is wrong with these people? What is wrong with these people that live in England? All right. Tell me, what does Lone Star need to do to win at home this weekend against a very good Jacksonville team?
So one thing that Lone Star has done well this season is stop the run. They are, if I'm saying this, the third best team in yards against, with only 50 on average through 3 games. Whereas Jacksonville is one of the best rushing attacks with Gerald Willis. They get about maybe 123 on average per game for Mr. Jared Willis and company. So it's a really good matchup to see, the immovable object versus the indestructible force. Who's going to prevail in that one? That's what I'm thinking, Dave.
What do you think about passing game? CC, who tore it up last week, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, against Ace, who was actually has been playing really well. He had a really good first couple weeks. What do you think about the quarterback game here?
CC has been just a monster. And I'll say that in a different way. Yeah, he got 335 yards passing, but he did that on 43 completions of 51 attempts.
Right.
So they're using CC a whole lot. No interceptions at all last week either. So he's efficient. He doesn't make mistakes. He knows how to control his pass. Whereas Ace is still kind of learning the ebbs and flows. 2 interceptions last week and only a 64 completion percentage. So it's really going to come down to, can Lone Star unsettle CC? Jacksonville, just lit up San Diego right underneath the secondary for most of that football game. So it's really going to be up to Lone Star to not just control, 5 yards plus, but control the underneath routes. And that's where Jacksonville was able to exploit the game last week.
And before, I'm going to ask you a question about defenses too, real quick, Tyler. But before I do, Dwayne in the chat said, Dave Axis, it's 3 a.m. over there. And I don't understand the point of that at all, Dwayne. I don't know why that matters. He should have his alarm set for 2:51 on his iPhone. How about that? Tyler, these are 2 great defenses, 2 great defensive lines. Hunter Norwood, all those guys, Mike All. Of course, we've got, Jukin Rukin and Yogi and Hugo. I can see the rushing game for Jacksonville. Lone Star hasn't really shown their rushing game yet. Is this going to be one of those games where both defenses just really just pin down the offenses and we're going to have to grind this out?
Just based on how both games went for both teams last week, we could very well see the same thing. Maybe a 7-7 scoreline going into halftime, and then things really kick off in the second half. Or both teams come in with the right adjustments and we just see a firestorm.
Yeah, you're right. It could go either way. Well, Jack's data seems to think it's going to be about middle of the road, 45.5 on the over-under, which is about midway, about halfway for this week's games. And they have Jacksonville favored by 3.5 at Lone Star. And if I would say anything about Lone Star, we did play our home field very well last season. So let's hope that's not the case. Unfortunately, SFL Nation and the Who You Got agrees with Jack's data, 108 to only 51 in favor of Jacksonville. So hopefully we can prove some people wrong. Game 2, London at Baltimore. Bo, this is an interesting game. These 2 teams, first of all, being put in the same division. Chad Rowland getting to go play against his old team for the very first time. The defending champs at home, coming off kind of a bad loss to Denver, and London coming off a great victory. So does London's momentum carry them, or does Baltimore, recover from last week?
About it for the battle for first place involving the London Knights and the Baltimore Vultures, right? I mean, I know it's only 2-1, but that's still a major accomplishment for London. And so, okay, I get it. London's riding high off of that thrilling victory, right? It was a shootout between them and Arizona last week. But, I got to bring them back down to earth for a minute here, because there's a couple of things going on. Number one, you've got an angry Baltimore team. A Baltimore team that admittedly didn't perform to their best, right? They suffered that. They got doubled up, and Jack Wigmore didn't do his best. He had a 62% average. But the biggest thing that stands out to me is T. Roy Gaines. T. Roy Gaines last week got stuffed he only had 11 carries for 20 yards. And I hear tell from people who are around Baltimore that T. Roy Gaines was livid. They said he was throwing things in the locker room. He wasn't talking to anybody, and T-Roy Gaines is livid. So that kind of concerns me for London a little bit. I'm expecting T-Roy Gaines to come out on fire, and you heard it here first. Expect 150 yards or better out of T-Roy Gaines on Sunday. Now, as far as who wins the game, I'm going to hold that for later. But T-Roy Gaines is going to get 150. And on the other side of the ball, you've got to do better if you're Robert Merrill. 6 carries,
Yes.
5 yards. That is completely. I mean, it says some things about how much people were leaning on Angus McLean last week. But that's one of the keys for victory for Baltimore. If Baltimore was watching tape and they figure out if Angus was sacked 6 times last week, so the offensive line has to protect London Angus a little bit better. Because if they don't, Baltimore can put the pressure on, and Angus is going to throw a lot more than one pick next week if Baltimore can get that pressure to him. So
Yeah.
they're going to have to lean on Robert Merrill.
I believe Angus was, he was one of the Diva of the Week nominees last week too. He had a great game. So here's an interesting question. I understand what you're saying about T-Roy, and usually if T-Roy has a big game, that means a victory for Baltimore. But London went into Arizona. We just talked about Arizona, how well they've played their first 3 games. And Arizona having to host Denver this week. But London went into Arizona and put 42 points on a very good Arizona defense. Do you not see the potential of that happening again this weekend?
It's possible. It's definitely possible. But what I will say is this: Baltimore's defense and Arizona's defense are not quite the same. I would give, if we're counting on defenses, I would give the edge to Baltimore's defense. So I don't know that Angus is going to have a great. Angus had a 95% completion rate. Let's think about it: 42 passes, 39 completions. That is an anomaly. I challenge Angus to do that again, especially against Baltimore.
Yeah.
It's so I don't see Baltimore's defense giving up that many completions like Arizona did.
Yeah, Jack Wigmore didn't have a great game last week. 263 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Here's the thing, though. Ivory Irvin, even in a subpar game, 7 receptions for 116 yards and a touchdown. Ivory Irvin might be the key to this game, along with what Tanner Hendricks just said in the chat. Says, Bo, you're forgetting the solid front 7 of London if Chad stays healthy. Chad got blown up and died last week.
Well, Chad, we're gonna have to check on Chad's back. I mean, last I heard, he was having back spasms, and he's questionable for this game. Perhaps age is a factor. I know Chad is up there in age a little bit. So we'll have to see if that front 7 can put some pressure on Jack Wigmore. He will throw the interception. I'll say that about Jack Wigmore. So if they can get Jack to make some mistakes, and then you can get that defense, Tanner Hendricks can step up, and by the way, Marcus Reed, what a game last week with 14 tackles. 14 tackles last week. So if that front 7 can get some pressure on Jack Wigmore, Tanner Hendricks and Marquise Reed will do the rest.
In the chat, I don't even know if I can say it right, but Coco put he combined Chad's name and Harish's name, Chad Reish. That's hysterical. This is my favorite part of the show, man. These people in the chat, they kill me. I love it. Well, let's see. Jack's data has wow. Baltimore only favored by 3.5, Bo. That's a little less than I expected. Under of only 45.5, which is middle of the road. But SFL Nation in the Who You Got, over 100 votes again more for Baltimore, 134 to only 30 for London. Moving into game 3. This is, so let me tell you guys, I was going to announce this at the end of the show, and I probably will again, but tomorrow, Louisiana releases their second edition of Swamp Talk, their weekly newspaper for their team. Ross Napoli reached out to me and asked me for the article if I would do pick'ems against the spread, and he wanted me to pick one game. And Ross, I'm sorry if I'm giving a spoiler here, but I have to talk about this one thing. He said put one game that you put down as a lock for the spread. The spread on this, and I'm going out of order normally. The spread for this is Vancouver by 3.5. I put this as my game, Chad, as the game, as a lock that Vancouver will beat St. Louis by more than 3.5. What do you think?
That's interesting. I mean, that's a bold move, Cotton. I mean, look, Vancouver is playing good. I'm gonna address something real quick because it was brought up.
Oh, here we go. Here we go, Bo.
What are we talking about here? So, I happen to stroll into a Vancouver game. Normally, I don't try to watch their games because it's just whatever. But I stroll into a Vancouver game and I see, Tom Pickford just 1 pick, 2 pick, 3 pick. I mean, just one after another. Of course, I like giving Andy a little bit of grief. So
this is a response to what's his name in the chat right now.
This is a response to James Walters.
Gotcha.
So I, obviously I like to give Andy a little bit of a hard time. I think everybody in this league probably likes to give Andy a little hard time.
Of course.
He deserves probably a lot of it, but it is what it is. I mean, obviously I kind of ducked out because really I just got bored. Like I was just bored and watching Pickford just throw a bunch of interceptions.
Hey,
so I was just like, I'm gonna go check out the other game.
Chad, let me read this real quick so people know what you're responding to. Earlier in the chat,
go ahead.
James Walters said, ask Chad why he was talking smack about Pepper early during Sunday's game and then disappeared when the Legion started moving the ball. So this is Chad responding to that. Go ahead, Chad.
Yeah, like I said, I just got bored. I mean, it was in Portland's offense is just a hot mess. I mean, we can get into that another time, but it is what it is. So like I said, it's funny because when you watch like other games and stuff, you'll see certain people from that team come in and chime in about certain people, and so I was just trying to give a little taste of the own medicine. But who gives a shit? Anyway,
moving on,
because really that's a topic that doesn't really matter. No, like I said, I mean Vancouver's playing really good football right now, even with Pickford throwing the ball. You have Robert Redford playing fantastic. Andy Hamilton, I think, got his first touchdown this past week. On a nice little one-handed grab, by the way.
Yeah,
so
he did.
they and Kendra Hall, she had a quote unquote off game compared to what she has been. So this team is just really solid. But on the other side of the ball is the St. Louis Gladiators, and to me, they're playing. I mean, I know they're 3-0, and that defense is still one of the better defenses in all the SFL. Vancouver only put up 27 against Portland last week, which I will always say that Portland has a very underrated defense. But the offense for St. Louis is way better than the offense of Portland. And to me, watching Christian Brown play, I think made me a believer. Watching CB12 made me a believer in the St. Louis team. I think they need to get the run game going just a touch more, but I mean, they're doing enough to win the ball game, and I think that this is, to me, like I said earlier, was the Mexico City game was being the game of the week. This is the other one, if it's 1A, 1B for me.
So if a team, though, on their resume, Chad, has a victory over Queen City and Louisiana, I feel like that's pretty impressive. Even with Louisiana's woes, they're still Louisiana, right? So
I mean, true. I mean, well, yeah. I mean, they're a dumpster fire for the moment, but yeah.
There's that term again. And St. Louis's 20-16 victory over Portland in week 1, probably not that impressive, but definitely the Queen City and Louisiana victories are impressive. But let's talk about Vancouver. These guys are firing on all cylinders right now. They're the first couple of games, we talked about this on Tuesday. First couple of games they score like 40-something points a game, and then what we called a moral victory, if you will, for Portland, only scoring 5 points, but holding Vancouver to 27. That was some kind of a moral victory for Portland. Is moral victory going to be enough for St. Louis in this game, or does St. Louis need to come out and say, "Listen, we can play with the big boys. We're power ranked number 6, and we can also go 4-0 in this game."
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is like a moral thing for them. Like, if St. Louis loses by 3, it's a great victory for them. No, they have a legitimate shot here. I mean, I know Vancouver is playing all cylinders, but really, if you look at St. Louis, they are too. And having the 2 wide receivers and having Elsie Mondavi in there in the slot, I think she's, a really big target for them.
The better of the Mondavis for sure.
The better. Oh, she's better than the Eagle for sure.
Better than Eagle.
Way better. I mean, light years better. But Eagle still does. Eagle still contributes every once in a blue moon, which is fine. But Delavu has played really well, and like I said though, that defense has just been really good. So Portland, I think, has a very underrated defense. They gave up 27 to Vancouver, played them really well. Shawn Allen was I think he had 3 picks, I think 2 or 3 picks, but at the end of it, I mean, like I said, St. Louis to me is a better overall team than Portland by a country mile. So this is going to be closer than what people think. And I mean, and it is 3.5. I don't know if you could say that they're going to beat, Vancouver's going to stop them.
I think that let's be honest. The only way to really stop Vancouver's offense right now is somebody's going to, on the offensive side of Vancouver, is probably going to have to get hurt.
Well, I mean, the way it's going to stop is if Pickford goes back to throwing 5-6 picks like he normally does.
Pepper?
No, Pickford.
Pepper. Tom Pepper? Is that what you said? Or you said Pickler? I thought you said Pickler. I'm like, Pickler's not playing in this game,
bro. Pickford. There you go.
Sorry, I'm with all these Peppers.
I know it works better with Pickler. It makes sense, but I try to throw a little jab, so it's
Pickle Pepper. So XF Sphinx, which I believe is Cam Curtis in the chat, said Vancouver's offense has been deadly. 120 total points scored over 3 games, which is currently first in the SFL. And first in overall passing at 345.7 yards per game, 6th overall in rushing at 113 a game. That offense is firing on all cylinders. Here's the funny thing, though. So we're talking about the Eagle LC thing. Cam, the other Cam, the second Cam in the SFL, what's his last name? Cam Irvine. He said that storyline is so played out about the Mondavis. He said, hashtag the baby is average. That's what I blurted out laughing while you were talking, Chad. So
nice. Good job, Cam. Way to go.
Real quick,
like I said, this is going to be a really good game, though. Overall, I mean, both offenses are playing. Vancouver's just playing lights out when it comes to that.
But before I get to Jack's data, real quick, one more thing from the chat. Alan from Charleston. Andy has been fine-tuning that offense the past few seasons. St. Louis can't turn the ball over much if they expect to win, which I completely agree. Jack's data has Vancouver only favored by 3.5. A lot of 3.5-point spreads this week. It's very interesting. Over under a 51.5, which is the second highest for the week, and 111 to 48. So another, not 100 votes, but a pretty widespread lead in the who you got for Vancouver. Moving into game 4. San Diego at Carolina. This is an interesting game. Carolina's had some good wins. Carolina's had some bad losses. San Diego's still trying to figure themselves out this season. Robert, how do you see this game playing out?
Yeah, I think this is going to be an extremely interesting game. Both of these quarterbacks, though they haven't been able to get on the winning side of the column very often so far, both pretty efficient quarterbacks. Javier Vasquez only throwing 3 interceptions, Xander with 8. One of the interesting things I see looking at this game, Logan Jack, out of the 91 completions Xander Gold has, 32 of them are to Logan. So I think that the corners for San Diego have got to be ready to defend the swing passes. Probably playing a lot in the flats, but even then you got to be careful. They got Harish Prasad and Heath McDaniel Jr. deep down the field, and that's going to be a tough task. Mike Ryan better be ready.
Yeah, so Carolina only puts up 10 points in week 1 against Vegas. Not a great effort. Week 2, they really take it to Lone Star with a nice victory, and then they turn around and lose to Florida. So is this going to be that kind of seesaw season, and is this their time to win again, Robert, against San Diego, or does San Diego finally have a chance to get in the win column?
I think that this is Carolina's time to win. It's, as you said, it's been a seesaw for them so far. I think once they get their game plan all ironed out, it's going to look a lot better. Their defense has been playing pretty well, forcing some turnovers past couple games. They're still on the bad side of turnover differential with Xander's 8 interceptions, but they're working on it.
There's some very extreme scientific data talk in the chat right now where birds tend to take out airplane engines, and birds crap on windows, planes plummet to earth. But thank God we have Winkler in the house back there doing the proper research to say the San Diego Mavericks are 0-2 versus animals this season and 0-1 versus mythical creatures. So I don't know how that plays into the over-under or the spread or the power rankings, but you know what? You only get the latest scientific data here on Axis Live. Robert, last question real quick. What does San Diego need to do to come away with their first victory?
The big thing they got to do is they got to get Jalen Wells going. 48 carries, 179 yards on the season, but no touchdowns quite yet. And, you know, I've said it once and I'll say it again. They got to get the ball to Optimus Klein.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said that. Was that you last week on the show? Somebody said that last week. I mean, literally the exact same thing last week. I'm pulling up the stats as we're talking about it. But let's be honest, San Diego last week had to play a great Jacksonville defense. They still scored 17 points on them, which is pretty good. Let's see what Optimus did last week. Optimus Klein,
1 for 23.
1 catch for 23 yards. Yeah, so even if we say it on the show, it doesn't happen. So let's see. Maybe this will be his breakout game this season. It'll be San Diego's as well. Jack's data disagrees with us. They have Carolina favored by 7.5. Over under of only 47.5. But again, the who you got over 100 votes more for Carolina, 136-27. Doesn't seem like SFL Nation thinks there are going to be very many close games this weekend, Robert. They're really leaning one team or the other in all these who you got picks.
Yeah, you know, there are definitely some games that on paper look lopsided. It'll be interesting to see, you know, how things come out of the gates.
Yep. Moving on to game 5, Fort Worth at Portland. Another interesting game, if nothing else. Portland still kind of low on the power rankings, Bo. Fort Worth trying to crack into that top 10, but Fort Worth's problem has been they don't score points, bro.
Yeah, I was thinking if there's a trap game this week, I was thinking this could be it. It's not completely out of the realm of possibility for Portland to get their first win this weekend. You know, I was looking at the numbers, and you know, it really seems possible. You know, Jason Williams had a great game last week. I was looking at the stats; he had 17 rushes for 140 yards, which is phenomenal. But if Tulsa's not willing to take the training wheels off of Cam Curtis and let him sling the rock, they're going to have a problem. And what did we just say earlier, which was Portland's one thing that they had going good for them? It was their defense. So if Portland's defense can do just as good as they did last week, and Cam Curtis has the reins on him, Portland is going to have a shot. The only thing Portland needs to do, is get Matt South to throw the ball downfield. He went 22 for 35 last week. He's going to have to do better than that. But more importantly than that, they have got to get Ezekiel Love going in the running game. I know Gunny said it's going to be Valentine's Day. Maybe Ezekiel will be inspired. But 20 rushes for 60 yards is unacceptable, and he's got to do better. So if they can find a way, and another stat that I saw that leans in Portland's favor, if Portland looked, Fort Worth gave up 420 yards passing last week, or excuse me, 420 total yards with 345 air yards last week. So that lets you know there's some vulnerability there for Fort Worth's defense. So if Portland can find a way to get their offense going, get Nelson Lozano involved from the tight end slot, and definitely Art Vanderlei's got to step up a little bit. He only had 34 yards receiving last week, and John Valentine had 6 catches for 53 yards. If they can figure out a way to get those great receivers the ball, Fort Worth is shown last week when they played Tulsa, they shown that they're willing to give up the yards. So you know, Fort Worth is 2-1, but it's not to say that this isn't going to be a good game. I believe Portland has a shot here.
Well, if Fort Worth, so Tulsa, along with Portland, San Diego, I can't remember the other ones, kind of staying in that bottom 5 of the power rankings, right? So Fort Worth, back-to-back games against somewhere between 20 to 25 in the power rankings. If they could put 30 up against Tulsa, don't you think they can do the same thing against Portland?
Portland's defense, again, you got to look at Portland's defense, and so analyze Portland's defense versus Fort Worth's offense, and that's what I'm looking at. So Tulsa's defense isn't what Portland's defense is. And so where Portland needs to step up is they need to step up from the offensive side of the ball. So if Fort Worth's defense can't step up and stop Portland from moving the ball. If Portland can somehow find a way to move the ball, they've got a shot. I'm not saying it's a great shot, but they've got a shot. You've got to play the game. You got to play all 4 quarters. Fort Worth is right to be favored, but what I am saying is that don't be surprised if Portland makes a game out of this.
I think that Gunny had a great point. I think if Ezekiel Love can have a great game, not only could he potentially be Diva of the Week material, but it could give them a chance to win the game. On Fort Worth side, though, what about Cam Curtis getting the ball to that other sexy tight end over there, Mr. Robert
Lauren
Garrett Jr.?
Percoco and Robert Garrett Jr. have got to be involved. They've got to. That's going to be important. That's paramount for them winning the game. That those little short routes that Robert Garrett Jr. likes to run and Percoco rather from the tight end slot, they've got to go. And throwing the ball 21 times for Cam Curtis and still only ended up with 206 yards. If they can, again, I emphasize taking the reins off of him. I know this is his first year at the quarterback position, returning rather to his normal position, but at some point they're going to have to trust him and throw the rock. If they can do that, get Robert Garrett and Lauren Percoco involved, as well as Stephen Hacker. He's another one who's got to get in the game and put up some yards. If they can do that, then, of course, it's Fort Worth's game to lose.
Well, here's the I'm going to go to Jack's data, but before I do, if I'm calling this, Thrilliams last week, 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. Thrilliams is Thrilliams, but I'm going to say right here, if Ezekiel Love can outplay, can outrush Thrilliams, Portland wins the game. Boom. How do you like that?
Don't be surprised.
You won't be surprised. Well, Jack's data, with all that talk, Bo, only a 4-point favorite is Fort Worth.
They agree with us.
Yeah. With the lowest over-under of the entire week at only 35.5 points. A lot of that probably having to do with Portland not putting points on the board. And again, a pretty wide margin in the who you got, 110 to 55, not the 100 that we're talking about before, but definitely more than doubled them up in the who you got. So moving on to the last game of the week, Sunday night, the nightcap, Houston at Vegas. Houston playing much better as of late. I can't remember their last game. I guess all you have to do is look at my profile pic to remember. What is Fear Doug? Are you allowed to boom your own statement? I guess I did. I guess I did anyway. Robert sitting there wishing he could just extend his fist to the left and knock Bo out. Oh, can't put that in the chat. That's hilarious. Houston coming off what most people consider an upset of Lone Star. Like I said on Tuesday, Lone Star falling a foot short of stealing that victory back. But unfortunately, Tyler, Houston has to travel to what I have called for a couple seasons now the best home field advantage in the entire SFL against a really good Vegas defense, who also seem to be dealing with their red zone woes that they had last season. I think I see this going Vegas, but tell me how you see it going.
I'm leaning toward the same way as well. For Houston, last week, they did just enough, I felt. Someone get Espresso a contract. My goodness, 5 of 5. Only one touchdown for Houston. The rest of those points were all field goals. So E.T. King and company did just enough to win that football game. I don't think it was an upset. I think that game was pretty even. Definitely coming into the season, definitely, if we were to look at it backward, probably an upset. But the way Houston's been playing lately, I think they fully deserve that way, especially how Lone Star came out and just they didn't do much. Lone Star just
for 3 quarters we didn't do anything. Yeah, I agree with you.
For Las Vegas, though, you were right. Their red zone woes are a thing of the past at this point with Colin Pierce. They've got home field advantage. Now they have a QB to match. Yes, he threw 6 interceptions last week, but that was a crazy game in itself. Colin Pierce has been phenomenal at home. In week 1 was a fantastic quarterback, showing maturity beyond his years. So definitely, I think Colin Pierce and company in Las Vegas have a fantastic opportunity to win this football game. When you look at the tail of the tape and look at these defenses, both of them are near the bottom in terms of the majority of their stat categories. Expect this one to be another, close to 100-point game if things go crazy.
I Yeah, I mean, I can see both teams putting a lot of points on potentially, like you said. Definitely Vegas showed that they can do that. Houston always has the potential to do that. If this does go to a shootout, does it still lean Vegas's way, or does that now lean Houston's way?
I think it definitely leans Las Vegas way. When I say close to 100 point, I think Las Vegas would just, they'll take control of the game, and it'd be by a 20-point margin if it goes that direction. I don't think it will go that direction. I think both teams have good game plans going into this next week. So hopefully we don't see something like that for those of us that like a defensive battle. But I think both these teams, both these offenses against those defenses have an opportunity to score 100 points combined.
Yeah, so Las Vegas, Scott Johnson, 15 carries, 107 yards, averaging 7 per carry. Of course, Houston has Warren Murray, who is, always has the potential to put up, 200 yards rushing. Could this just turn into a running game, grinded out kind of game, you think? Or are you leaning towards and expecting the shootout you talked about?
Well, I think if you look at how both offenses are built, Las Vegas is more a balanced attack. Colin Pierce throwing the ball about 100 times while Scott Johnson is running about 50. So a little bit more on the pass heavy. Whereas you have Houston, it's much closer together. 71 carries for Warren Murray, touchdowns for Murray, and then 118 attempts for E.T. King. So definitely could see I think more of a passing showdown than a rushing showdown, especially if Las Vegas takes control of the game early.
Okay. All right, Tyler, thank you for that. Jack's data, this is one of only 2 double-digit spreads. They have Vegas favored by 10.5. So kind of leaning towards what you were saying, with Vegas maybe being able to pull away from Houston. Over under 45.5, which is about middle of the road. And it looks like SFL Nation and the Who You Got almost 100 votes more, 126 to 37 in favor of Vegas as well. So all signs leading Vegas as of now. We'll find out on Sunday night. Let's move on to the Diva of the Week winner. The Diva of the Week winner is in the house. Let me make sure that everything's good to go here. It looks like it is. Let's, Wink, if you're ready, you want to roll the tape first?
Gotcha. Rolling.
Divas.
That's right, we all have inner divas. I have more diva in my little finger than you. That finger, use that snap.
Listen, guys can be divas.
You guys, I'm gonna win Diva Week.
There you have it, folks. Diva of the Week winner for Week 3, Season 16 is none other than the London quarterback, Angus McLean, who is with us in the chat, in the green room. Angus, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. So, yeah, it's been a great week, and that was just an amazing game.
It was an incredible game by you. Your stat line here, real quick. 39 of 41, 95% completion percentage, 421 yards, 4 passing touchdowns with 0 interceptions, Angus. How did you even do that?
Well, I spent some time down at the pub lately and throwing darts. So, I got better at that. Just throwing the right in there. So,
Well, you were definitely throwing darts this past weekend. Talk to me about the game, how exciting it was, the high scoring affair. But ultimately, even with your offensive, with all your offense, it came down to a defensive play to win the game.
Yeah, well, we try to put, get the whole team involved, and in fact, at the very beginning of the game, that mess up in the beginning there with the interception that I just have to say, that's on the coach. He told me throw it to everybody, and so I did. I was like, I'll throw it to him, and so.
Well, you threw it to everybody on your team at least. That's good. Then you didn't throw it to the other team.
He told me afterward. He said on the team.
That's the most impressive thing. That's the most impressive thing when you throw the ball 40 times for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns that you don't have any picks. Have you ever had a game like this before, Angus?
Not quite. I think closest I came was probably my first year when I was with the San Francisco Sharks, and I did have a 500-yard game that year. But
well, did you win? Did you win Diva of the Week that week? I think not.
No, I've never had one quite like this. And between attributing it to my teammates, but also, I've hired a couple of cheerleaders. So, we're putting together a squad for the team. So,
well, then
I've got
that
2
leads
so far. So
that leads me to my last question: how does Chad look in a cheerleading outfit?
Thankfully, we don't have to have Chad in one, but the ladies are pretty damn good.
There you go, Angus. Well, first of all, congratulations on winning Diva of the Week, week 3 of season 16. And thank you for popping on this show. Are you able to stick with us to do our pick'ems?
When is that going to be?
Right now.
Sure, why not?
Okay, sounds great. All right, let's move into the pick'em stage. I think there's a couple games that Tyler probably won't be able to guess. I don't know about you, Robert, but let's knock these out because I do see that Johnny Pickler is in the green room, ladies and gentlemen, ready to take the hot seat in After Dark after we do these pick'ems. And I know that's probably why most of you are here this evening to hear what Johnny has to say about his and Louisiana's performance through 3 weeks in the SFL. Let's go to game 1. Chad, we're going to start with you. Louisiana at Atlanta. Who you got?
I think they're all here to hear Angus McLean.
It could be that Angus McLean throwing darts with cheerleaders, baby. We need a graphic for that, Wink.
I'm going to vouch for this. Some cheerleaders are pretty hot. I'm not going to lie. No, this game, like I talked about earlier, I mean, Louisiana's offense is just really struggling. It's just all hell's broken loose down there in the Bayou. I have Atlanta winning by at least 2 touchdowns.
Wow. Robert Garrett Jr., who you got?
Yeah, I think Atlanta gets their 3rd win here and then, starts hitting up Tyler again.
Okay, Bo.
I heard about a players-only meeting taking place. I'm taking Louisiana in this one.
All right, Tyler. Does Atlanta get their 3rd victory already in week 4?
Toss up for me.
Oh, is this one you can't pick?
This is one I can't pick.
Okay. Angus, who you got first game this weekend at Louisiana at Atlanta?
I'm going to go with Louisiana.
Louisiana. All right. Gunny, you with us?
Billy Ray Valentine, Atlanta Swarm.
There you go. I got to tell you, if both him and Ezekiel Love have amazing games that get nominated for Diva of the Week, I'm getting lottery numbers next week from Gunny. Game 2 on Saturday, Charleston at DC. Chad, who you got?
This should be a pretty decent game to watch as well. DC, can they rebound from that game? Playing a really good game against Mexico City, but I take Charleston.
Okay. Robert?
I'm going to step out of this one, but I'm going to predict that it's a great game either way it goes.
All right. Bo?
Yeah, I was going to say DC. I really have a feeling they're going to get their first win this weekend, but I can't. I got to go with Charleston.
Okay. I want to, but I can't. Tyler?
I want to, but I can't.
Tyler?
So for me, I think DC's win is coming later in the season. They're going to put up a good fight again, but I don't think DC wins this one. Charleston.
Okay. Angus?
I'm going to go with my good friend TD Drew and go with Charleston.
Charleston. And Gunny?
Pepper Elliott, Folly Beach for Charleston.
All right, perfect. Denver at Arizona, Chad.
This is going to be a good game. It was tough simming against Arizona. I got to give them props. They're a terrific team. But Denver's just playing great. I can't go against Denver on this one.
All right, Robert.
Yeah, I got to take Denver here.
Bo.
Game of the week. I'm going Denver.
Tyler.
Going to be a close game, Denver.
Angus.
I'm going to go with an upset and go with Arizona.
Ooh, nice call. Gunny.
Look at Angus.
Denver.
Denver, okay. Game 4 on Saturday, LA at Florida, Chad.
Oh, man. I know Tyler ain't going to like hearing this, but Lycan's 4-0.
Wow. Robert.
I'm going with Chad here. LA gets the win.
Wow. Bo, lots of LA love on this show. Bo Martin Jr.
Keeping LA going. LA on this one.
Holy smokes. Tyler.
You know what? I've jumped on the bandwagon. LA wins this one.
Angus, what
you
do
know
you
that
think?
means they're going to lose, right?
I know. It's the 2-10 curse. Now they're going to lose their last 9. Just watch.
Nice. Angus, who you got?
We love werewolves in London, so you know.
Wow. Look at this. Gunny, is this a clean sweep?
It is. Boyd Bolesky will continue his touchdown surge, but in a losing effort, it's going to be the Lycans.
All right. Game 5 on Saturday, Mexico City at Sioux Falls, Chad.
Yeah, I would love to see Sioux Falls get a win for them to figure things out. But
right,
I think Dan Tritz gets another 4 or 5 sack game. I'm going Mexico City.
Okay, Robert.
Yeah, Sioux Falls continues their downward spiral going with Mexico City.
Wow. Bo Martin Jr.
I think Sioux Falls gets their first win.
There you go. A little Sioux Falls love. Tyler?
Sioux Falls flat again. It'll be Mexico City.
You said you started saying Sioux Falls. I started writing it. I had to erase it. Angus.
Mexico City.
All right. And Gunny.
Division foe is going for a loss, so Sioux Falls.
There you go. We always have to call that. That's right. All right. Nightcap on Saturday, Queen City at Tulsa, Chad.
I think, to me, this is going to be a coming out party for Queen City. I think they're going to go in, show some dominance, and take this ball game. Queen City.
Okay. All right, Robert.
Yeah, I think Queen City's taking this. I don't know if Tulsa can fix the run game this quick.
Bo Martin Jr.
Queen City by at least 2 touchdowns.
Wow. Dude, can Queen City even muster up 2 touchdowns the way their offense has been, though? That's the question, right? Tyler?
Another pick 'em for me.
Okay. Angus?
Going Queen City.
Queen City. And Gunny?
Albert Begin, pick 6, Queen City.
All right. No love at all for Tulsa on this panel, apparently. All right. Moving into Sunday, Jacksonville at my glorious Lone Star Glory, Chad.
How much do you like me, Dave?
I don't in about 30 seconds.
All right, good deal. I'm going to take Jacksonville.
I knew it.
They're playing really great. I think Christensen has another good game. I got to go Jacksonville.
Oh, hold on a second. What's Cam Curtis saying to me in the chat? With all these subs over last month, you got to get some emotes made up to hype the chat. You're muted, bro, or censored. All right, I'll have to talk to Wink and Eagle about that. That's not really my forte, but we'll get on it. We'll get something in there for sure. Robert Garrett Jr.
Yeah, I think you're about to fire me too, Dave. I'm going with Jacksonville.
You
here.
just hate it. You just want us to lose for your benefit. I don't want to hear it. Bo Martin Jr., do I even have to ask you?
No, you don't have to ask me because I already know. So let the haters hate.
Let them hate. Tyler?
No, it's going to be a close game. I do give the slight edge to Jacksonville in this one.
And Angus, how about you?
Wish you all the luck, but I'm going with Jacksonville.
I'm sorry, Angus, you were breaking up there. I almost thought you said Jacksonville.
Yeah, I really hope for you there, Dave.
All right, thank you, Angus. I appreciate that. And Gunny, tell me about it. Tell everybody what's up.
Dave Axis will be in the end zone for Lone Star.
Which end zone, though?
Both of
His
them.
own end zone, or touchdown.
With
One
a
in
hurt
one half
back,
and
a
one in the
pulled
other.
hammy? What is he going to be in the end zone doing?
Celebrating another touchdown like I did last week. Chad, game 2 on Sunday. Your London Knights traveling to your old team, Baltimore.
Yeah, I thought this would be hyped up a little bit more about me going back to face my old team.
Well,
But
we talked about it.
I know, but I just, it is what it is. No, this is going to be a really tough game. I mean, I'm running a sim right now as we speak, and Baltimore, they're hard to plan for. Obviously, I learned everything from TJ, so I'm hoping to kind of put in some stuff about this, but I got to go with my Knights. Obviously, I mean, Angus McLean is probably going to have another brilliant game where he has to be no choice, obvious Diva of the week again. So,
Nobody's won back to back Divas, and only I think one person's won twice, if I'm not mistaken. Actually,
look out now.
Winkler can check that, but I don't think anybody's won twice. Now I think about it.
Oh yeah, and the reason why I would never pick Baltimore either, because Eagle just said in the chat, I still haven't got my ring yet.
First off, the reason why we can't hype up Chad, the reason why we can't hype up the reason why we can't hype up this game is because you have finishing issues. You need to stay on the field before we can do that.
That's right. That's right. You know what? I'm staying on the field this time, and I'm going to be sacking Jack Whitmore for sure.
Nice. All right, Robert Garrett Jr., where do you see this London Baltimore game?
Yeah, I love the hype that the Knights have going for them this season, but I got to go with Baltimore. They're going to be angry after that loss.
Yeah. Bo?
You know what? I've been saving this for this game because I see it coming. This is my pick 'em. No, it's too close to call.
Okay. Tyler?
It's been mentioned by a couple people now, both by Mo Barton Jr. and just now by Robert Garrett Jr. Baltimore's pissed, but I know one person in particular who's pissed, who's ready to take out his revenge on a team, and that's going to be T-Roy Gaines. Expect a big day from T-Roy, and Baltimore is going to run away with it.
That's going to be
past his D-line, bro.
That'll be an interesting factor. Angus, do I just pencil you in as London?
Yeah, of course, but I'm going to actually be really honest here. I think it's probably going to be close, and 24-21.
Ooh.
I'm making a prediction there.
There you go. I'm writing it down. 24-21. Got it. Gunny?
Baltimore.
Baltimore. What did Winkler say also? No two-time Diva of the Week winner. Okay. I think somebody came close, but not sure. All right, Gunny took Baltimore. Chad, game 3 on Sunday. Let's we're running behind, so let's whip through these real quick. Vancouver at St. Louis.
St. Louis.
Robert?
Vancouver.
Bo?
Vancouver.
Tyler?
St. Louis.
Angus?
Vancouver.
And Gunny?
Vancouver.
Game 4 on Sunday, San Diego, Carolina. Chad?
Sorry, Tyler. I got to go with Carolina, man.
Carolina.
I like what you guys are doing on offense. Don't get me wrong, but I got to go with Carolina.
Robert?
I'm going with Carolina here.
Bo?
I'm going to say it. San Diego gets the first win.
Wow, look at this guy. Tyler?
Hey, let's make it 2 for 2. San Diego.
There you go. Angus?
Carolina.
And Gunny?
Skyhawks.
Okay. 5th game on Sunday, Fort Worth at Portland. Chad?
I know we're trying to run time, but I got to give this stat real quick.
Okay.
Since Matt South has been in this league, he has thrown 9 TDs and 35 interceptions. That is a QBR of 58.33. That is why Portland's offense, to me, is pure trash. That is also according to the legend Jason Miller. I am going with Fort Worth.
Okay, Robert.
Yeah, I'm going to have to take the Toros here, Dave.
Yeah, you think? You sure you don't want to bet against them?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay, all right. Bo?
I was going to give Portland a shot, but after what Chad just said, I'm going Fort Worth. God.
I think Chad's changing everybody's mind. Tyler?
Chad used the T word.
They do. Tyler?
Portland's still developing, in my opinion. Fort Worth has been, more consistent. Fort Worth takes this one.
Okay, Angus?
Fort Worth.
And Gunny?
Nacho's going to be a beneficiary of a Matt South pass for the Toros.
Okay, there you go. Last game of the weekend, Houston at Vegas. Chad, who you got?
I'm reading Cam. Yeah, you're right, Cam. I mean, I'll admit. It wasn't even in the second quarter. That was in the first quarter.
Even worse.
Last 4 plays, I felt like Harish.
Hashtag medics can't fix him.
No, there's not a soul that can fix me, Cam. To me, I like what Vegas is doing. I'm going Houston. I'm going with Houston on this game. I just feel like after watching that game last week against you guys, no offense on that, but It's just
Okay, but let's talk about that just for a quick second. We almost came back and won that game, and I'm not saying that to give us kudos. What I'm saying is Houston almost collapsed, right?
true.
So
True.
you think Vegas has the best home field advantage in all the league? You think that they can go into Vegas and not collapse in the fourth quarter, or be able to play like they did the first three quarters, all four quarters this week?
Stamp it.
It's all right. It's stamped. Robert.
Yeah, Dave, I appreciate you guys leaving the Texas trophy in Houston for a little bit longer, but I'm going with Las Vegas here.
Yeah, just FYI, we didn't do that on purpose. Bo
Vegas.
and Tyler.
Vegas for me.
Angus.
Houston
I'm
got
sorry,
get going too slow, and they've been getting going too slow.
Okay. Angus, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Vegas.
Vegas and Gunny.
Las Vegas.
Yeah, I think I'm going with Vegas too. And not to rip on Houston any more than we already kind of have on this show. I mean, they did beat us last week. Final score is the final score. I wonder though if we're talking if Greg Soto gets that extra foot and Houston loses another game, are we talking a different story here? In the meantime, let's move on to After Dark.
Hold on. I found something. I want to show it to you.
Hey, Winkler found something, everyone.
That's for Angus.
He put the cheerleaders on there.
Hell yeah.
That's amazing. Attaboy. That's great. There you go, Wink. Let's make sure we send that to Angus so he can have it too. All right.
Oh, yeah.
We can go to After Dark now.
Yeah. Well, we probably should have gone to After Dark first before that. But Angus, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you being here, helping out with the pick'ems, and congratulations on your Diva of the Week, week 3 in season 16.
Thank you so much for having me on.
You got it. Take care. All right, let's move on to After Dark. Let's get the hot seat warmed up a little bit for my good friend, Mr. Johnny Pickler. He is in the house. He's in the green room. He's here to answer some questions for us. I've asked the panel to prepare some questions as well, and we will also take a few questions from chat, as we go along. So first and foremost, Johnny, welcome back to the show, bro. How you doing?
Hey, not bad. How you doing, gentlemen?
We are doing outstanding. I think Bo Martin Jr. had to go, so he won't be joining us. But Johnny, who's that? Is that you, Johnny, talking? I think we lost Johnny for a second.
No, I'm here. I'm just going to mute myself when I'm not talking, so you don't have.
Okay, no worries. I heard some other background noise, so I didn't know if it was you or somebody else. So no worries at all. Johnny, let me just jump right into it. The elephant in the room is pretty humongous, with both you and Louisiana. Let's talk about you first. We talked earlier in the show. You've thrown probably as many or almost as many interceptions in 3 weeks than you have in any other season in your career. What do you think are the reasons for that?
Yeah, first off, just listening to Angus earlier, maybe I took up the wrong hobby in the off season. I got to get some darts going. But no, yeah, it's rough. I mean, everybody says that every team, every player goes through down spells, but I hadn't yet, nothing like this yet, in my career. So it's definitely new. It's not a good feeling. I could attribute it to a lot of things. I think that it starts with me. I have to take personal accountability with the fact of just making some bad decisions out there, trying to force some things. I do think that our offense is different than it was last year. A lot of people think it's a mirrored offense, as last year, but we've had some guys in the receiving core move around. We lost a stud receiver to London and Saren Storm, a good buddy of mine. We lost a lineman. So we're definitely hitting our early season struggles. I know that I'm feeling I felt very protected in the pocket last year. I don't feel that, but I'm definitely making some decisions where I should be taking sacks and throwing some interceptions. But we're winning as a team and losing as a team, and while our defense has done,
You haven't won yet.
Done their, yeah, you're right. You're right. We haven't won yet. But there's an issue with the schemes right now, and I gotta trust the coaches to get it right, soon. But pretty disappointed with where we're standing.
So you brought up the turnovers on offense. What do you make of them moving Robo? And we talked about this too, and Chad made a good point about this. Taking a tight end blocking build in Robo, moving him to wide receiver 3, and then bringing in Frank the Franchise Wade and moving him to tight end. Do you think that was beneficial, or do you think that's part of the offense, part of the reason why you're having the offensive woes that you're having?
I can't play like scientist as to why we're doing as bad as we're doing right now. But if you're referring to that move specifically, I did have my concerns about Robo, moving over. I knew that he was designed. I throw a lot to my tight end, so throughout my 3 years, and and he came in replacement of Cody Scott last year, with a build that we really liked, and we thought that it was going to support us both in the passing game, and the running game, and really support Reggie, and it did so last year. And when I knew he was making the switch over there, I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out, and I still have confidence in it. But it was his decision to do so, and it was leadership's decision to do so. So they know more than me, I suppose.
What do you think? What do you actually? Actually, I'll ask them one at a time. First question: the game against Fort Worth, the 9-7 loss, do you think that was an anomaly for you guys, only scoring the one touchdown in a whole game? Or does that feel like it's going to be the new norm for Louisiana this season with the struggles?
I hope to God it's not any type of new norm.
Obviously you hope that, right?
That's something, that's just not acceptable with us. What hurts them, I don't know about that game specifically. If there's one word I can describe our play, my play, but really just the team's, 0-3 record and in the fashion that we've lost, it's just disgusting. And I can't think of a better word for it. And while we have to, move forward, I can't forgive us so easily. We can't forgive ourselves and just like forget about it and think it's going to get better without really working at it. So the fact is with a team with such, it really hurts when you're a team with high expectations, and
right.
Last year we didn't have such high, a lot of people doubted us, and we we surpassed a lot of expectations in people's minds. This year, we were atop the power rankings. We were some analyst championship, predictions, to be right back there in the Final Four. And that's the bar we set for ourselves, is championship or bust. So to start the way we have, it's really, it's left me speechless in certain ways.
Let me ask you one more question, then I'm going to have the panelists ask some questions. Also, for those of you listening in the chat, if you have questions for Johnny about Louisiana, anything going on this season, put them in the chat and we'll get them. I'll ask Johnny on the air. But before I get to these guys, I think the obvious thing is your interceptions this season. I think the other obvious thing that I have to ask you about is what is wrong with Reggie Streeter?
I think, I don't think anything's wrong with Reggie, and I don't think anything's wrong with me. I think we've both proved ourselves as talented, individuals in this league. I don't think we have to prove what we're both capable at the top of our game. I think that, our team's in a complete funk. I think our players are getting outplayed, and I think our coaches are getting completely outcoached right now.
Chad, let me go to Chad first. I'm going to go through the panel here for questions, but Chad, and I know that you also have been in contact with one of the beat writer guys, I think, or something. You said also had a question. So, Chad, what questions did you have for Johnny tonight?
Johnny, how you doing, my man?
Not bad, Chad. How about you?
Not too bad, man. Hey, so I gotta ask. I gotta go through some stuff real quick here. So, total stats for you so far this season, man. Third to last in completion percentage, which is unlike you. 16th in yards, which who gives a shit about yards? 16th in touchdowns. That's whatever. But you're tied for the lead in interceptions with 13. And a stat that I know that you care about, you are dead last in QBR. So my question is is it because of the fact that you maybe are having what you call what they used to call a sophomore slump, but in your terms, it'd be like a junior slump? Or is it because of like coaching situations, like, the schemes are different? Because obviously to me, you hear about, just certain things that are going on in the league, within the Louisiana organization. But what do what is different for you this season compared to that? Is it just you, or do you truly think it is the coaching situation?
Yeah, you noted that QBR is an important stat to me, and also not throwing interceptions. I mean, really, at the end of the day, you also know this about me, is that I could give a shit about stats as long as we win ball games. And but the reason why those two stats specifically, have always, been ingrained in me, kind of as a quarterback, is because I like to pride myself on efficiency and taking care of the ball, but that's, obviously not happening. I mean, it's not one or the other, Chad. It's a little bit of both. I think, you look back to my rookie year with St. Louis. I think I took the most sacks in the league that year. I think over 40 sacks. But I also had I think the best touchdown interception ratio. Maybe Dunhill, the MVP, had me, but definitely the least amount of interceptions in the league that year. But I actually, I took sacks. I was making smart. I lived to play another down, and I'm not necessarily living to play another down. And maybe the rhythm's gotten off. It's just kind of steamrolled, down. After one loss, after two losses, you're just forced, and you're trying to make plays. You're trying to turn the storyline around, and it's just not working. But so I have to take accountability there. But definitely we're not in sync, from a coordinator, coaching, quarterback level either, and we need to get on the same page, and we need to start winning ball games.
Okay, fair enough.
Chad, did you have questions from someone else?
So obviously, I keep in pretty close contact with Jason Miller, SFL reporter. So if nobody saw, he wanted me to mention that if nobody saw, obviously you have the Miller report that came out today on the website. If you haven't read it, go check it out. The dude's really good at writing, in all honesty, to me. But I've known him for almost all my life, so that's a good reason. So he wanted me to bring this up. Obviously he wrote in the Miller report today, talking about just your interceptions and what the problem is, and failed revolution, as he calls it. But what he wanted to really say in that article, and he didn't, he just held back, was the thing is you guys come out with a newspaper called the Swamp Talk. So basically the way he kind of told me was what, like, the offense is in the swamp. So the question he wants to know is does the focus of Louisiana going to this newspaper, the Swamp Talk, do you think has any effect on the game itself and what you guys are doing so far this season?
Well, first off, I'm not currently a subscriber to that newspaper. So put that on record. But no, I mean, there's just, there's nothing, I have of interest to read in that. I think that, to answer Miller's question, your question, whoever it's from, we do great things, in Louisiana. I mean, we pride ourselves on, doing things off the field just as much as on the field. And but there is a truth to I think what he's implying there, and I do think that our organization has to get their priorities in order. I think that it's great content, to be honest. If anyone's checked it out, I think it's unique. I think it's great content. A lot of people may think it's all just about Louisiana, but it's as if you're opening an old newspaper, and you got standings, you got this, that, you got some unique things. I glazed over the first issue, but what's really I think it's poor timing. I really do. I wasn't a fan of of it getting released prior to week 3. If it was something that started before the season, and it was something new and fresh, and then you got to keep it going. You started before the season, you got to keep it going, win or lose. But to I don't think it's it looks good when we're doing all these things off the field, coming off 2 losses, and we're excited about launching a new newspaper, and I'm just looking to get a fucking win, excuse my language. I just want to win ball games, and I understand that we're trying to build a brand here. We're trying that's kind of the talk inside. We're always trying to be bigger than other organizations, do this and that, trying to build a special brand, Louisiana football, hate us or ain't us, blah, 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 blah. But, to me, that brand has always been winning football games, and if you can't win football games, I mean, I don't need another, another way for someone to read about how pathetic we are, so, I definitely think that focus has to be, that all leadership should be abandoning other tasks and be focusing on figuring out how to beat Atlanta this week and how to win the next game and take it one game at a time. I think that's where our focus needs to be right now.
Let me jump in here real quick. We have a couple of questions before we get to Robert from the chat. Johnny Siege Falco is asking, does Johnny think the cap penalty that Louisiana took possibly is another piece of that 0-3 conundrum?
It definitely doesn't help us. We knew that we're at a disadvantage last year, but that wasn't discouraging to us. I mean, let me see. I mean, going into the offseason, it was discouraging because there was moves we couldn't make. I mean, we had to let go of a guy like Saren Storm. We had to maneuver things, around. We had to, cut some training off some individuals and things like that. So the cap definitely hurt. We felt it in the offseason, but we were still confident as shit going into week 1 against Vancouver because we were at a disadvantage for more than 6 weeks last year and into the playoffs. I mean, we didn't have. We had a star guy a star defensive back who was suspended. We were without our head coach. We had a lot of things. We had a tight end, rookie tight end that had to come in mid-season to replace, a guy who, a studly build tight end. So, we had a lot of things going against us last year, and it didn't stop us from playing great football. So while it was discouraging that we couldn't, take complete advantage of the offseason the way I think leadership would have, it didn't deter our confidence. And yeah, maybe it's played an effect. But I don't know for certain, where we'd be if I truly don't know if we'd be 3-0 or if we'd still be 0-3 if we had those extra 25 points right now.
Hey, real quick, Fear Dog in the chat, can you reword your question for me? And I can ask Johnny after we get to Robert. Robert, what's your question for Johnny tonight?
So, yeah, I was just curious, obviously most of us aren't able to see in the locker room and all that stuff. You guys, a big part of your game, at least out in the public perception, is kind of your guys' trash talk. That's what you've been known for. I was just curious if that's a thing that the whole locker room's bought into and is hyped about, or if there's maybe guys in there that are kind of like, yeah, maybe we should stop and that kind of thing. Obviously, from your perspective, because that's all we can really get right now.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Now when Gerald, started this organization and brought me over, and Ross and Mike and all the guys and everyone who came over who was former Gladiators, Chuck, I don't have to list them all, but I mean, we have a lot of guys who returned from last year. So when you're talking about Louisiana football, we're talking about, a pretty similar, we're talking about 18 of the same guys from last year. We got Wade in there, and we got, Wyo in there who are new, and they understood what we're all about coming into this year. We do talk smack per se. We are confident. We put our chests out there. We want to be that, we want to make it hurt even more when we beat you type of thing. But we open ourselves up by doing that to getting slapped in the face. And we understand that. That's why, I'm willing to come on an SFL leading show like the Axis show and take the hot seat because, I've been criticized before that after the occasional loss, I haven't done a press conference or this or that. But, our team always understands that, that when we're confident or when we jab at the other team and give them some bulletin board material that, there's always a chance it can bite back in our face. And, prior to this season, that didn't happen too often, but where we're at right now, it kind of goes with, what I'm saying about the newspaper, maybe it's time to tone it down a little bit. And that goes for me too. Maybe we got to just refocus and learn how to get wins right now because, we're not scaring anybody. We're not intimidating anybody anymore like we may have when they initially saw us on the schedule coming into the season.
Definitely focus off the field could be a potential problem. And I see what you're saying there, Johnny, with, rolling out this newspaper and maybe some other social media things, as opposed to, making sure you guys are coached properly, make sure the sims are getting done, whatever, all that other stuff that leads into game by game. But let's talk about one thing on the field too. Fear Dog has a question in the chat. It says, how much of this struggle is due to game situation? Streeter is forced out of balance because of need to get back in the game. Then JP is forced to overthrow or turn it one-dimensional. I guess basically maybe what he's saying is to play catch-up. What do you think about game situation being a factor in this 3-game losing streak?
Yeah, the game script definitely hasn't gone our way. I mean, whatever, our game plans have not fit with the script of the games and the way that some teams have punched us in the mouth early. So I mean, it brings up a good point. I mean, it looks messy out there. It doesn't look clean. It looks gross. We're running the ball on times we should be throwing. We're throwing the ball. We're forcing it on times maybe we should be handing the ball off. We're trying to make a play for 40 yards when we need 7. When we used to always be that team that would take a 7-yard out or a quick slant and move that ball down the field. We're doing some things that just look that look weird out there. It's just and so it's not been the norm. Last year it was clean. We threw the ball and we ran the ball at nearly if people look back at our games. I mean, I know that Reggie put up tons of numbers and he's a stud and he got the MVP and he deserves it. But I mean, we threw to the throw to run ratio in most of our games. We're about 50% until mid third, fourth quarter. But by then we had 2 to 3 score leads on teams, So, I mean, the game scripts just fit with how we were kind of beaten on teams. But right now, with the adversity we're facing, the game planning definitely isn't matching up right.
If you have Johnny, please put them in the chat. I don't see anything new right now, except for Cam.
Did you see Jeff's question, Jeff Berg?
I did not. Where's that at?
Is there an issue in transition from Mike Twinscrew, who many had as coach of the year last year, and Gerald coming back to also want to play his brand of football? So is there a headbutt between coaches?
Right, that's a good question, Johnny. We actually talked about that in the preview of your game, where you would think that Twinscrew, with the progress he made last year with Gerald coming back, would have been a great combination, but it hasn't looked that way thus far.
Yeah, as far as I know, those guys are in lockstep. They're gonna lose games together, and and when we get some W's, they're gonna win together. I think that I think that right now it just it looks Twinscrew. I think part of the question was that that Gerald's trying to play his brand of football. I think Mike was playing a lot of Gerald's brand of football last year because he learned underneath him. Regardless of who's getting the final say so and who's calling the shots and who's signing off on the game plan week to week this year, it's a different season. And we have different personnel packages, and we got players playing in different positions, and we're down alignment, and we got different things. So, I mean, coaches have to adjust. Good coaches have to adjust, whether that's Gerald or whether that's Mike. And I think they're trying to figure it out together right now.
Tyler, let's move on to Tyler. Tyler, what's your question tonight for Johnny?
Hey, Johnny, how you doing?
Not bad, Tyler. Thank you.
Hey, good. I've got a question for you, but it comes out with some explanation. So I know you don't really care about stats a whole lot, besides a few key ones here and there. But I decided to take a deep dive into last season through your first 3 games and compare them to these first 3 games. So if you want, you can bear with me. If not, go ahead and shut me up. So I noticed that both here in season 15 and in season 16, you both started out with away games and then 2 games on the road, right? So last season, you were 69 of 95 with a 72% completion percentage, threw for 766 yards, 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and took 5 sacks. Reggie Streeter went 100 carries for 436 yards with a 4.4 average and for 5 touchdowns. Your record at the end of that stretch was 3-0. Compare that to this season. You have thrown 119 times, completed 74 of your passes, which gets you a 62 completion percentage. You've thrown about the same yards, 743 yards in total, 4 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and took 5 sacks. Note, this past week when you played St. Louis, you took 0 sacks and threw 6 interceptions. Reggie Streeter, on 78 carries, only ran for 247 yards for a 3.2 average and only has 2 touchdowns to this point. Your record has been well stated, 0-3. So my question to you here, Johnny, is who do you blame? Do you blame the coaching staff for maybe changing up the game plan and forcing you to throw more passes? Do you blame Reggie Streeter for not getting it done on the ground with just about 200 yards less rushing yards than last season? Or do you blame your offensive line for not protecting you?
Yeah, I think it goes with what I've said before. I think that, I first and foremost, I'll always take accountability, and 13 interceptions, out of a now veteran quarterback isn't acceptable. I used to, people used to celebrate when they sacked me, in past seasons, but, I liked living to play another down. And like you said, I didn't take any sacks, but instead I threw 6 interceptions, the most in my career against my former team this past weekend. So I got to shape up regardless of, what everybody else is doing on the field. And if, my line's not working the same way they were last year, I have to adjust to that and know that I have less time and we got to make quicker routes, but at the same time, it's a team effort, and, and it's on the coaches too. Like I said, the players, we are getting outplayed. I am playing extremely subpar. I'm not, I'm disappointing myself every week out there. But the coaches, they're getting out coached as well. And that's not to throw any shade on my own coaches. I want to make it clear to everyone. It's not like, oh, Johnny, he said he was Louisiana for life. He's about to, ship his way out of town. He's trashing his coaches right now. It's like, that's not the case. I have a different type of relationship with my coaches. With Gerald, I consider him a close friend, and he knew that it was a big sacrifice for me to leave St. Louis, to come, kind of start this journey with him in Louisiana. And everything that I'm saying, when I'm shifting any type of blame towards him and the rest of the staff, he would be the first to take all the blame for himself. I know him like that. And it's because, we have a quarterback coach relationship that, is a special one, and that we have that love for one another, that, that we can be upset with one another at times, that we can, that we can talk it out, that we can be real with, the media about it.
Hey, Johnny, there's a couple more questions from the chat. I think this one's coming from Cam Curtis. It says, for Johnny, last week in your St. Louis pregame press conference on Twitter, you referred to the team's performance as embarrassing, and we got to get our shit together. What do you feel needs to be changed? So we've been talking, a lot about what's wrong, but going forward, what do you think needs to be changed to right the ship? And then the follow-up to that from Cam is, has any of this translated to the locker room?
To answer the first part of the question, again, where it's worth me weighing in, and they do give me some voice, a decent amount of voice out there between me and the coaching staff. That's really a question that maybe someone could get to a coach as to what we need to do better. I personally think we have to throw everything out. I mean, and not to overreact. I mean, I think that we need to just, to take an eraser to the whiteboard. And I think that we need to dig down and look at tape, look at who we are, rewatch those 3 games until it makes you, want to vomit. And then, and really dig deep into our future opponents and figure out what we have to do to be different out there. Because what we're doing right now, just isn't working. And if you're and the follow-up question was, is this moving into the locker room? I'm guessing that that's a morale type of question. No, morale's good in the locker room. I mean, we're all disappointed together, and but we do have a one team, one fight mentality, and we haven't lowered the bar for ourselves, which is why it's so disappointing where we're at right now. We're still a championship or bust team, and that's going to be our mentality going forward.
Last question on this topic, and then I'm gonna actually ask you a couple different things. From Tanner Hendricks in the chat, says, this is for Johnny. If things continue the way they have this season, do you see a breakup coming between you and the Revolution?
No, I wouldn't say that. I don't foresee I don't foresee things getting much worse than they already are, so but no, we'll get it together, and I've got my, if there's a breakup, it's gonna, just, I don't know if this sounds right. If there's a breakup, it would be Gerald's doing, or the team's doing. It wouldn't be me leaving my brothers in St. Louis, in Louisiana. It wouldn't be me, leaving because of a little bit of adversity right now. I came over here because of the belief in the coach that I selected. I still believe in him. I still believe in this team. I believe in my linemen and my receivers and my defense. I believe in everybody here. So, we're just going to have to pick it up and start to work a lot harder and not rest on our laurels.
Before we switch gears, does the panel have any other questions for Johnny or any follow-ups to anything you heard? Chad? Robert?
I mean, sorry, I don't know, my microphone just messed up there. But yeah, I think him coming in here and taking the lumps, taking the hits, I mean, that's kudos to you, man. So.
Okay. Robert?
No, all good.
Okay. Tyler?
All good on here. Thanks, Johnny, for coming on.
Hey, Johnny, Cam Irvine wants to know what teams are you impressed by through the first 3 weeks of this season?
Definitely impressed. First and foremost, in my former Gladiators. They never make it an easy game for me. I'll tell you that. I mean, I thought we were gonna. I was hoping to get a win, and I got smacked in the face. My own brother intercepted the ball on me. I was happy. That's his first regular season interception. He had a interception in his rookie year when he was drafted. In the second round after I was drafted. And a lot of people don't. Some people know about that storyline or whatnot. He has a different last name than me because we're technically stepbrothers. It's Mark Gronick, linebacker for the St. Louis Gladiators. But we're brothers. We've been stepbrothers since we were like 5 or 6 years old. And but anyway, so he intercepted me along with 5 other Gladiators. And, last year, even when we beat them in week 1, they intercepted me, I think, 3 times in that game. And that was the first time I'd ever thrown 3 interceptions in a regular season game. That was my worst game to date, week 1 of last year, and now this is my worst game again to date. So, I mean, they don't just make, I personally feel it. They don't make my life easy, and to see them 3-0, while I'm excited for them and impressed by them, they're a division foe, and it's and it's not something I want to see right now with 9 games left on the slate. Knowing that we're 3 games behind them.
Right. Jeff Gagne actually just jumped in a little late, so I want to go back to what we were talking about before. His question is: a lot of focus is on the offense. How closely do you work with the defense? Gone, Arthur, Tank were forces last year and a little quiet themselves this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm really close with the guys on my defense, and I've always said, I think I've said on your show before that I don't think there's a quarterback out there, and I'm sure the quarterbacks will say it, that has more fun, sitting back and watching his defense succeed than I have, so far in my career. I love what Gerald's defenses are notorious for being deadly, breaking a turnover record, in my rookie year in St. Louis, coming close to it last year, or I think breaking a takeaway record last year, so, the defenses are deadly. And getting Nathan Blake back and the addition of Anthony Wyo, I think it can really only make the defense better. Yeah, they haven't been as flashy, as they have, but, it's about being successful on both sides of the ball. And we need to, they kept us in the Fort Worth game, and they kept us in the St. Louis game, and we just can't get it done offensively when we're used to putting up, 25 plus points a game at a minimum. We're just not getting it done. So, while I do say that these are team losses and everybody's to blame, and I know that the guys on defense would even want to step up their game, especially the front 7. I don't think they're getting pressure on the quarterbacks the way they'd like to. But if there's anyone that doesn't have as much blame on their shoulders, it's the defense right now. But they got to be ready for the tests ahead, because we got some big games against us.
Before we wrap this up, a couple more things. Dwayne in the chat from St. Louis, Dwayne really well. He wrote in the Twitch chat, love him or hate him or indifferent. I just got to give Johnny huge props for coming on here and being honest and answering the tough questions and being open and honest and just being himself. That takes major, I think he means cojones. And it's that kind of courage and leadership we were looking for when we took him first overall and replaced our last first overall to make him our quarterback. Johnny is a winner. No matter what happens this season, he'll keep grinding and he'll be fine. So that's from your old boss over in St. Louis, those kind words. Johnny, as we wrap up though, let me ask you this. What do you want to say to the rest of the league who's just been basically pounding you guys through Discord, through social media, through DMs. And listen, you talk a lot of trash, and I think it's great for the league. I love the way that you do it. But when you go 0-3, you got to take some of that trash talking back. So what do you have to say to the doubters, the naysayers, the people who are kind of on your case right now while Louisiana's down?
Yeah, I mean, I love that stuff. I mean, that's why we talk, is to get a reaction out of teams. So if teams out there, I can't say that I've read everything that you and the rest of the analysts have read, but I'm sure they're firing away at us right now, and deservedly so. Some teams stay quiet, win or loss. Some teams, do this or that. We do a lot of talking, and and we like to be edgy, and I love, seeing teams with a chip on their shoulder, get, jawing back at us. But if you're gonna hammer us when we're at our low point, I mean, don't think that this is a franchise. Don't think that we're writing this season off, and don't think that we're not going to be a deadly team, for seasons to come. So, we'll remember those comments, and we'll have just as much fun, with you guys when we're back on top. But we got a ways to go before that's happening.
All right, last question for me, unless Wink has something. I got to ask you this. I could not do this show without asking you this. Do you know the St. Louis quarterback's name now?
Christian Brown. Christian Brown.
Oh, dude, did you? I nominated him for Diva of the Week this week just for like talking trash back to you and then saying they were going to win, and they won. So
hey, that's the type of stuff that I love. I love that I ignited a fire in the kid, and to be honest, that scab comment, the kid's no scab. I mean, and it doesn't matter if I wouldn't have rubbed it in his face if we would have won that game, because we still have improving to do. That comment just came out out of frustration at kind of where we were at going into that game, and some reporter correcting me on something when I was trying to talk. So
right.
that's where that comment came out.
Hey Winkler, do you have anything else for Johnny before we wrap this shindig up?
I just wish him the best of luck this season.
Okay, there you go.
I have a lot of stuff to say, but none of it is appropriate with their team situation right now. Why don't you guys figure out your locker room and your game plans, and then me and you can trade barbs?
All right, there you go. Hey, Cam we talked to him on FTF this weekend during halftime. Are you talking about the upcoming weekend, Cam, or are you talking about last weekend? Who's he talking about?
Christian Brown is interviewed for this weekend.
Oh, okay. Oh, great. That's awesome. So we'll get to hear about that too. Last question. Jeff Gagne also wants to know, Johnny, before you go, Johnny, has London been upgraded from trash to rubbish this year?
London's definitely not trash, and I did neglect them with a team that I'm impressed. I actually have them. I think that they're going to upset Baltimore this week and be alone in first place in that division.
Wow.
I really don't pay attention too much to other divisions, but I think that I'm impressed with the hire of Chad by Liam. I think that he and Tanner and the boys over there have done a great job, and I think that they're already kind of passing their own expectations right now. And, so I think the sky's the limit for that organization. Definitely, not a trash organization.
Well, Johnny, first of all, thanks for coming on. I know, it's easy to come on these shows when you're winning and when you're playing well and you're an all-star and all that. Not as easy to come on when you're 0-3 and the wheels are starting to come off and people are talking trash and doubting you. So I second what Dwayne said in the chat. Really appreciate you coming on and basically, taking the heat from us and answering all our questions. I wouldn't, it'd be kind of cool if, as I'm looking at the standings, if someone from Sioux Falls or Tulsa or DC, any of these other old 0-3 teams want to come on and kind of do the same thing, I'd appreciate it. Johnny, this was kind of fun. Maybe you should start doing your press conferences on this show instead of doing them on Twitter. What do you think?
It'd save me some, and the production team over here, some editing. And I like just giving real responses, and I don't mind taking it good or bad. I'm never, me, you've known me for a while, Dave, and I think that if there's one show to do it on, I'd love coming back to you guys. I mean, you guys got a great rotating panel of very knowledgeable analysts who aren't. I know that none of them there are afraid to ask me what they would consider a tough question. I'd love to do it, and I'd love to show that other people could do it too if they wanted to.
I've actually got one question.
Oh, of course, Winkler's got to sneak in real quick.
Question. I'm looking at the schedule, going through stuff, and I mean, Louisiana plays Atlanta this week, and then they play Denver the following week. Then they got what people would consider winnable games the following weeks, but week 9, Sioux Falls versus Louisiana.
Ooh.
Going into week 9, who's gonna have more wins? I want to know.
Is that for the crowd or is that for me?
That's for you. I think that's for you.
It's for you, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'd take us all day because I'm never going to predict a loss. I'm never going to predict a loss for us, and I'm not really concerned with Sioux Falls. I haven't watched much of their games this season, but I'll just say, Gerald, you're lucky you don't have us a second time on the schedule because I'd love to get another lick.
I would also love to add 6 more interceptions to your record, sir, because I would love to be the team that put 12 up on you to cement your legacy in most interceptions in a season. So maybe next season, if you start winning some games, we'll play you twice.
Oh. Hey, also real quick, we need to wrap this up. We are like way over time, but Johnny, I do want to ask you before we do our sign off. Do you have any words for Atlanta this weekend?
No, just bring your best, because that's what we're going to try and do. So, bring your best. We want to beat you at your best and hope it's a good game.
There you go. See, I know Siege and Swole were both in the house here tonight. So there you go. All right. And Dynasty's in here too. Good for him. Love my Atlanta peeps. I'm red, white, and blue now, but I still need some green and blue. So glad to see ATL in the house on the show. Appreciate you guys. All right, Wink, let's wrap this bad boy up. Want to thank everybody for being on the show tonight. Chad Rowland, Robert Garrett Jr., Bo Martin Jr., all the juniors here tonight, I guess. Tyler Jr., I don't know. Everybody. TJ, you're the new TJ now. Doug Day, love you too, buddy. Thanks for being in here. Thanks for listening. I love all you guys in the chat. Love the back and forth. Love all the questions tonight. Not just for Johnny, but for the rest of the show. Appreciate all of you tuning in. Yes, Ray, I know it's past your bedtime, so thank you for staying up. Appreciate that. Special thanks to Gunny, as always, in his Pearls of Wisdom. Thanks to Angus McLean for coming on, winning Diva of the Week, Week 3, Season 16. And Johnny, thank you to you too, bro, for coming on and taking the heat from the panel tonight.
Yeah, of course. Anytime, Dave.
You got it, bro. All right, everybody. That's a wrap. We're going into Week 4. A lot of great games, but apparently SFL Nation doesn't think that too many of them are going to be close. I guess we'll find out next Tuesday when we recap the Week 4 games right here 9 p.m. Eastern on Twitch. So in the meantime, have a glorious weekend. Have a glorious SFL Week 4, and I will see you at the tees.